Hello guys, welcome to Fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the true heir of Salazar Slytherin and Master of Death Naruto x Bellatrix x Narcissa, Harry Potter. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, the heir apparent. Blood dripped from Naruto's fingertips, spattering onto the weathered scroll unfurled across his lap. The ancient Uzumaki archive room, buried deep beneath the ruins of Uzushiogakure, held secrets untouched for generations. Dust motes danced in the shaft of sunlight piercing through the partially collapsed ceiling, illuminating complex seal matrices that had begun to glow in response to his blood. "Damn it," he muttered, sucking at the self-inflicted cut. 3 days of exploration had yielded little until this moment. The fourth great ninja war had left him restless, haunted. Peace brought questions rather than contentment, driving him to seek answers about his clan's legacy beyond what Konoha's archives could provide. The scroll's characters shifted beneath his blood, rearranging into a language he somehow understood despite never having seen it before. The sensation was familiar, reminiscent of how Kurama's chakra had once felt before they'd become partners, foreign yet intimately connected to his being. Open to the serpent's tongue, blood calls to blood across the veil. Naruto read aloud, the words feeling strange on his tongue. What the hell does that mean, Kurama? The fox stirred within him. This script is older than I am, Kit. Something from before the Sage of Six Paths divided the Ten Tails. Naruto's fingers traced the spiraling pattern at the scroll's center, where his blood had created a peculiar reaction. The symbols pulsed with an emerald light that reminded him of Sasuke's Sharingan techniques, yet fundamentally different, less genjutsu, more dimensional. I wouldn't touch that if Kurama's warning came too late. Reality collapsed inward. Naruto felt his body compress, molecules squeezing through an impossibly small aperture, before expanding explosively outward. Disorientation overwhelmed him as darkness gave way to moonlight filtering through dense foliage. The musty scent of the archive vanished, replaced by the earthy perfume of an unfamiliar forest. "Were you?" Kurama finished, sounding distinctly nauseated. "Kid, something's wrong with the natural energy here." Naruto steadied himself against a massive tree trunk, one hand pressed against his temple. The natural energy surrounding him flowed differently, thinner, wilder, less responsive to his senjutsu senses. His sage mode attempted to activate instinctively but sputtered out like a candle in a storm. "Where are we?" he whispered, cataloging his surroundings with trained precision. Ancient trees stretched skyward, their canopies blocking all but fragments of a star-filled sky. The forest floor crawled with life, small creatures scurrying through underbrush, though none approached within 10 meters of where he stood. In the distance, faint light suggested civilization. Not where. When, maybe even what, Kurama growled. "This doesn't feel like our world at all." Movement flickered in Naruto's peripheral vision. He pivoted, kunai materializing in his hand from a storage seal, only to find himself facing what appeared to be a horse-man hybrid. The creature's human torso blended seamlessly into an equine body, muscles tensed with the same wariness Naruto felt. "You are not welcome here, stranger," the centaur stated in a language Naruto somehow understood perfectly, despite never having heard it before. "The stars did not foretell your arrival." Naruto lowered his weapon slightly, though remained battle-ready. "I didn't exactly plan to arrive. Where am I?" The centaur's eyes narrowed, his gaze lifting momentarily toward the heavens. "The Forbidden Forest. You stand on the boundaries of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, human. Though you carry the scent of something other. Witchcraft and..." Naruto's voice trailed off. He sensed no deception from the creature, yet the words seemed absurd. "Look, there's been some mistake. I was in Uzushiogakure, studying clan scrolls, and then, Mars is unusually bright tonight," the centaur interrupted, as though this explained everything. "The serpent constellation aligns with your star. The ancient crossing was foretold, though not expected in our lifetime. Before Naruto could respond, distant voices penetrated the forest's quiet, humans approaching with illuminated wand tips. The centaur's hooves pawed nervously at the ground. They come. Firenze would counsel you to surrender peacefully to the wizards. Bane would suggest you flee. I, Megorian, merely observe that destiny rarely arrives by accident. With that cryptic statement, the centaur melted into the darkness between trees. Naruto considered his options. Running would only postpone the inevitable in unfamiliar territory. Fighting without understanding the situation risked unnecessary conflict. Diplomacy, however uncomfortable for a frontline fighter, seemed the logical approach. The voices grew louder, accompanied by snapping twigs and rustling undergrowth. The magical surge came from this direction, Headmaster. Unprecedented power broke every monitoring instrument in Hogsmeade. Indeed, Alastair. Though perhaps we might approach with caution rather than aggression. Naruto stepped into a small clearing, hands raised shoulder high, palms forward in the universal gesture of non-hostility. 4 figures emerged from the tree-line, each holding what appeared to be a slender wooden stick emitting light. 3 men, 1 woman, all dressed in flowing robes that would have seemed impractically ceremonial in a shinobi village. "Good evening," said the eldest, a tall man with auburn hair threaded with silver, and a beard long enough to tuck into his belt. Half-moon spectacles perched on a crooked nose, behind which keen blue eyes assessed Naruto with unsettling intensity. "I am Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts. Might I inquire as to how you managed to apparate through wards that have stood impenetrable for 1,000 years?" Naruto maintained his non-threatening stance while evaluating each figure. The older man radiated power reminiscent of the third Hokage, calm wisdom masking formidable strength. Beside him stood a severe-looking woman whose rigid posture reminded him of Tsunade in formal settings. The third figure, a scarred man with a wildly rotating artificial eye, practically vibrated with paranoid vigilance. The fourth, a portly gentleman clutching what appeared to be a lime green bowler hat, seemed the least threatening but held the anxious demeanor of a politician. "Uzumaki Naruto," he replied, deciding honesty was the safest approach. "I was researching ancient clan scrolls in my world. A blood-activated seal transported me here. I mean no harm to anyone." The scarred man barked a laugh. "Your world. Hear that, Dumbledore? Either confounded or the most creative illegal portkey user I've encountered. I vote we take him to the ministry for questioning." "Now, Alastair, let's not be hasty," the portly man interjected. "Unusual magical occurrence, certainly, but no laws clearly broken yet. As Minister for Magic, I suggest, Minister Leech, with respect," the woman interrupted, her Scottish brogue pronounced, "the wards around Hogwarts have never been breached in this manner. We cannot dismiss potential threats to student safety." Dumbledore raised one hand, silencing the debate. "Perhaps we might continue this discussion in my office, rather than the Forbidden Forest at midnight? Our guest appears cooperative." Naruto nodded agreement while processing their conversation. Ministry. Minister. Magical occurrence. Pieces of an impossible puzzle began assembling in his mind. "I'll answer whatever questions I can," he offered. "But I might have just as many for you." The journey to the castle provided Naruto's first glimpse of Hogwarts, a massive stone structure whose architecture rivaled the grandest buildings in the 5 nations, illuminated by thousands of windows glowing with warm light. Against the midnight sky, it appeared both inviting and imposing, ancient yet vibrant with energy. Kurama stirred within him. "Kit, this place is saturated with chakra, but it's different. Wilder. Less structured than what we manipulate." "Magic?" Naruto questioned internally. "Perhaps. Stay alert. We don't know the rules here." The corridors through which they passed confirmed the building's function as a school. Notice boards displayed student announcements, portraits, which, disconcertingly, moved and whispered among themselves, depicted scholarly figures, and occasional glass cabinets showcased what appeared to be academic achievements. Eventually, they reached a stone gargoyle which sprang aside at Dumbledore's murmured "sugar quills," revealing a spiral staircase that rotated upward of its own accord. The headmaster's office beyond contained so many fascinating objects that Naruto struggled to maintain his focus: silver instruments emitting puffs of colored smoke, bookshelves packed with ancient tomes, and what appeared to be a magnificent red bird watching him with intelligent eyes. "Please, sit." Dumbledore indicated a comfortable chair before settling behind his desk. The others arranged themselves around the office, the minister and scarred Auror flanking the door as though preventing escape, the Scottish witch standing at Dumbledore's right hand. "Now then, Mr. Uzumaki, you claim to be from another world entirely?" Naruto considered his response carefully. "I come from a place organized into hidden villages of shinobi, what you might call ninjas. I was in the ruins of Yuzushiyogakure, my mother's ancestral village, researching family histories when I activated a blood seal that somehow transported me here." "Blood magic," the scarred man growled disapprovingly. "Fascinating," Dumbledore countered. "And you have no connection to our world? No knowledge of magic or wizarding society?" Naruto shook his head. "None. Though we have our own form of energy manipulation called chakra. Perhaps a demonstration?" Dumbledore suggested. After a moment's consideration, Naruto formed a simple hand seal. A shadow clone popped into existence beside him, causing the minister to yelp in surprise and the Auror to thrust his wand forward defensively. "Remarkable," the Scottish witch murmured. "Wandless human transfiguration. Or perhaps conjuration." "Shadow clone technique," Naruto explained as the clone dispersed itself. "A basic jutsu where I come from." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with undisguised interest. "Basic, he says. Minerva, what would you classify that demonstration as, in our terms?" "Post-NEWT level transfiguration combined with animation charms, performed wandlessly and non-verbally," she replied. "Impossible for all but perhaps yourself and a handful of others, Albus." The assessment visibly disturbed the minister, who twisted his hat nervously. "Dumbledore, this is clearly a matter requiring ministry oversight." "Perhaps the Department of Mysteries," a soft chime interrupted him as a letter materialized in midair, dropping onto Dumbledore's desk. The headmaster opened it, scanned its contents, then looked up with renewed interest. "Most curious. The Gringotts goblins request Mr. Uzumaki's presence at their earliest convenience. They claim their oldest vault detection spells have activated for the first time in centuries, identifying him as the heir to a dormant account." The mood in the room shifted perceptibly. "Goblins don't make mistakes about gold," the Auror muttered. Dumbledore folded his hands beneath his chin. "Indeed, Alastair. Which suggests our visitor has connections to our world beyond what any of us anticipated." He turned to Naruto. "Perhaps, Mr. Uzumaki, you would consent to visiting Gringotts Wizarding Bank tomorrow? Their heritage verification procedures might provide answers beneficial to us all." Naruto recognized a diplomatic solution when offered one. "I have no objection." "Excellent. Then I propose we adjourn for the evening. Mr. Uzumaki can be accommodated in our guest quarters, and tomorrow we shall escort him to Diagon Alley." Dumbledore's tone brooked no argument, though the minister appeared ready to protest until the headmaster added, "Of course, Minister Leech, your presence would be most welcome during these proceedings." The political mollification worked. "Yes, quite right. Can't be too careful with interdimensional visitors, what? I'll arrange a security detail." As the others filed out, Dumbledore lingered. "One small matter, Mr. Uzumaki. Would you mind if I introduced you to a friend?" Before Naruto could respond, Dumbledore opened a glass cabinet containing a tattered, pointy hat. The object appeared mundane until Dumbledore placed it on the desk, whereupon a rip near its brim opened like a mouth. "A dimensional traveler? How delightfully unexpected," the hat announced, startling Naruto despite his ninja composure. Bring him closer, Albus. Dumbledore gestured toward the hat. The Sorting Hat has been evaluating students' characters since Hogwarts' founding. Its insights might prove valuable. Naruto approached cautiously, reminded of Gaara's sentient sand. You want to sort me? Merely curious, the hat replied. I've sorted thousands of students into their houses based on their characters and potential, but never someone from beyond our dimensional boundaries. May I? After Naruto's hesitant nod, Dumbledore placed the hat on his head. Immediately, a presence brushed against his consciousness, gentler than Ino's mind techniques but still distinctly invasive. Fascinating, the hat's voice echoed in his mind. Such remarkable experiences you've had, young man. A childhood of isolation, yet you maintained such capacity for compassion. Tremendous courage in the face of overwhelming odds. Loyalty to friends that transcends reason. Ambition to change entire societal structures. The hat paused, its presence seeming to probe deeper. And what's this? Another consciousness within you? How extraordinary. Kurama growled. Get out of our head, fabric creature, before I incinerate you from within. Peace, ancient one, the hat replied unperturbed. I mean no harm. But how very interesting, this connection to serpents. Aloud, the hat announced, a challenging sort. Courage enough for Gryffindor, certainly. Loyalty worthy of Hufflepuff. Intelligence sufficient for Ravenclaw. But above all. The hat seemed to hesitate before declaring, this one belongs to Slytherin, though not as a student. As an heir. Dumbledore removed the hat, his expression inscrutable. An heir of Slytherin? Are you quite certain? The blood speaks, Albus, the hat replied cryptically. The chamber will recognize its master's return. The pronouncement hung in the air like a thunderclap, though Naruto understood nothing of its significance. What does that mean? He asked, looking between the hat and Dumbledore. It means, Mr. Uzumaki, that your visit to Gringotts tomorrow has become considerably more intriguing. Dumbledore's tone remained light, though something in his eyes had hardened. Salazar Slytherin was one of Hogwarts' founders, a wizard of extraordinary power but controversial views. His bloodline was thought extinct. I'm not from your world, Naruto pointed out. How could I be related to your founder? A question to which I dearly hope Gringotts might provide answers, Dumbledore replied. For now, I suggest we both reflect upon this development. Miffy. A small creature with bat-like ears and bulbous eyes appeared with a sharp crack. Headmaster calls Miffy. Please show Mr. Uzumaki to the East Tower guest quarters. Ensure he has everything needed for a comfortable night's rest. The house elf bowed low. Miffy will take good care of Headmaster's guest. As Naruto followed the strange creature from the office, Dumbledore called after him, one final thought, Mr. Uzumaki. In my experience, those who find themselves unexpectedly in strange circumstances often do so for reasons beyond mere accident. Perhaps your arrival was destined. The words echoed the centaur's cryptic statement, leaving Naruto to wonder what forces had truly brought him to this bizarre world of witches, wizards, and magical creatures. Morning arrived with disorienting unfamiliarity. Naruto woke to sunlight streaming through leaded glass windows, illuminating a bedroom more luxurious than any he had occupied before. A four-poster bed with velvet hangings, ornate wooden furniture, and thick carpets covering stone floors, all suggesting wealth beyond typical shinobi accommodations. Still think this is genjutsu? He asked Kurama while performing his usual morning stretches. No, the fox admitted. This reality feels solid, different from ours, but substantive. The energy here responds differently to your chakra. Naruto experimentally molded chakra, creating a Rasengan in his palm. The spiraling orb formed normally, yet seemed to draw additional energy from the surrounding atmosphere, growing slightly larger than usual before he dissipated it. A crack announced Miffy's arrival, the house elf bearing a tray laden with breakfast foods. Good morning, Master Uzumaki. Miffy brings breakfast and message from Headmaster Dumbledore. Headmaster says party leaves for Gringotts at 10 o'clock from entrance hall. Thank you, Miffy, Naruto replied, accepting the tray. The creature's obvious servitude reminded him uncomfortably of the Branch Hyuga's position, a system he had promised Niji to help change. Are you paid for your work here? Miffy's enormous eyes widened further. Paid? Oh no, Master Uzumaki. House elves serve wizarding families and Hogwarts proudly. Payment would be terrible insult. The response raised more questions than it answered, but Naruto filed them away for later consideration. After a brief but thorough examination for poisons, shinobi habits died hard. He consumed the unfamiliar yet delicious breakfast while contemplating the day ahead. By 10 o'clock, Naruto had explored his guest quarters, attempted to sense the castle's energy pathways, finding them chaotically beautiful rather than structured like chakra networks, and changed into fresh clothes provided mysteriously in his wardrobe, black trousers and a dark orange shirt that approximated his preferred style while blending better with this world's fashion. In the entrance hall, Dumbledore waited alongside Minister Leech, the scarred Auror, now introduced as Alastair Moody, and a goblin representative who regarded Naruto with undisguised curiosity. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki. May I introduce Silverclaw, Senior Accounts Manager at Gringotts? He has graciously agreed to escort us directly to the bank's Heritage Division. The goblin inclined his head slightly. The activation of a founder's vault is unprecedented in recent centuries. Director Ragnarok himself wishes to oversee the verification process. They exited the castle grounds, passing through impressive wrought iron gates flanked by winged boar statues. Beyond a small village of thatched cottages, the party stopped beside a weathered boot. A port key, Dumbledore explained, noting Naruto's quizzical expression. Magical transportation. Simply touch the object, and it will transport us instantly to London. Naruto hesitated, recalling his unpleasant dimensional crossing. Is it uncomfortable? First-timers often find it disorienting, Moody growled. But it beats walking to London. When everyone had placed at least one finger on the boot, Dumbledore counted down. 3, 2, 1. A hook-like sensation yanked behind Naruto's navel, spinning reality into a kaleidoscopic blur before his feet slammed onto solid ground. Only his shinobi reflexes prevented an undignified stumble. They had arrived in a small courtyard behind what appeared to be a tavern. Silverclaw approached a brick wall, tapping a specific pattern with one long finger. The bricks rearranged themselves, forming an archway that revealed a bustling shopping street unlike anything in the Five Nations. Diagon Alley assaulted Naruto's senses, shops displaying everything from broomsticks to bubbling cauldrons, witches and wizards in colorful robes, owls swooping between buildings, and the mingled scents of strange potions and exotic foods. Despite having visited many foreign locations during his travels, nothing had prepared him for this concentrated display of an entirely different magical culture. Impressive, isn't it? Minister Leech commented, noticing Naruto's wide-eyed assessment. Finest wizarding shopping district in Britain. Their destination dominated the street's far end, a snowy white building towering over neighboring shops, with burnished bronze doors guarded by armored goblins. Silverclaw led them up the white stone steps, past the guards who snapped to attention at the senior goblin's approach, and through the bronze doors into a vast marble hall. Hundreds of goblins worked at long counters, weighing coins, examining gemstones, and recording transactions in massive ledgers. Silverclaw bypassed the public areas, leading the party through a side door into a corridor lined with portraits of distinguished-looking goblins who tracked their progress with suspicious eyes. After several turns and a descent via a torchlit staircase, they reached an ancient wooden door reinforced with iron bands. A plaque proclaimed, Heritage Division, by appointment only. Silverclaw pressed his palm against the door, which swung inward silently to reveal a circular chamber dominated by a stone table. Behind it sat an elderly goblin whose elaborate gold-embroidered uniform and imperious bearing identified him as someone of considerable authority. Director Ragnarok, Dumbledore acknowledged with a respectful bow. We are honored by your personal attention to this matter. The goblin director's penetrating gaze fixed on Naruto. So this is the anomaly who activated the Slytherin air detection wards. Approach, young man. Naruto stepped forward, maintaining a respectful but confident demeanor developed through diplomatic missions. Uzumaki Naruto. Names have power, Mr. Uzumaki, Ragnarok replied. Today we shall discover what power lies in yours. He gestured toward the stone table, upon which rested a shallow basin carved with runes, a ceremonial dagger, and a sheet of parchment that appeared impossibly old. The inheritance ritual requires blood freely given. 7 drops, no more, no less. Naruto glanced at Dumbledore, who nodded encouragement. Blood rituals were forbidden in most shinobi contexts outside medical procedures, but this world operated under different rules. Taking the dagger, he pricked his thumb and allowed exactly 7 drops to fall into the basin. The blood swirled, seemingly of its own accord, before flowing onto the parchment where it began forming intricate patterns. Ragnarok leaned forward, his expression shifting from professional detachment to unmistakable shock. Impossible, he muttered, before composing himself. And yet, Gringotts' magic cannot lie. The blood had formed a genealogical tree, names appearing and connecting through branching lines. At the very top, partially faded yet still legible, appeared the name, Salazar Slytherin. It seems, Ragnarok announced, that we have confirmed the Sorting Hat's proclamation. Mr. Uzumaki is indeed the last living descendant of Salazar Slytherin, though through a most unexpected lineage. Minister Leech peered at the parchment. What's this branch here? I can't read the script. Ancient Sanskrit, Ragnarok explained. It appears that approximately 1,000 years ago, a daughter of Slytherin, previously unknown to our records, traveled eastward and established a new bloodline in a distant land. That lineage eventually became what Mr. Uzumaki knows as the Uzumaki clan. Naruto stared at the parchment, watching as his parents' names appeared, Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato, followed by his own. This is accurate, he admitted. But how could Slytherin's daughter have crossed between dimensions? Perhaps she didn't need to, Dumbledore suggested thoughtfully. Perhaps the dimensional barrier is more recent than we realized. Historical records mention great magical disturbances during the Founder's era. What if your world and ours were once connected, only to be separated by some cataclysm? The theory aligned with certain Uzumaki legends about the clan's mysterious origins, though none had mentioned wizards specifically. Ragnarok cleared his throat. Theoretical interdimensional history aside, this verification confirms Mr. Uzumaki's claim to the Slytherin vault and properties. As the last direct descendant, he is entitled to all assets therein. Minister Leech shifted uncomfortably. Surely there must be some provision regarding interdimensional claimants. Ministry regulations predate your ministry by several centuries, Ragnarok interrupted coldly. Gringotts recognizes blood right regardless of dimensional origin. The treaty between wizard kind and goblin nation is explicit on this matter. Moody muttered something that sounded suspiciously like convenient interpretation, but subsided when Dumbledore gave him a warning glance. What exactly does this inheritance entail? Naruto asked. Ragnarok snapped his fingers. A goblin assistant appeared with a leather folder, from which Ragnarok extracted several documents. The Slytherin estate includes Vault 7, one of the original Gringotts vaults, containing approximately 13 million galleons and numerous magical artifacts. Additionally, you inherit partial ownership of Hogwarts Castle as one of the founder's heirs, ownership of a property known as Slytherin Manor in the Yorkshire Dales, and several smaller holdings throughout Britain and Europe. The revelation stunned everyone present. 13 million galleons represented almost unimaginable wealth, even without the property assets. There is also, Ragnarok continued, a sealed letter for the next true heir. It has resisted all attempts at magical examination for centuries. From a velvet pouch, Ragnarok produced a small envelope sealed with green wax impressed with a serpentine crest. When Naruto accepted it, the seal warmed beneath his touch before crumbling away, allowing the envelope to fall open. Inside lay a small key and a folded parchment covered in elegant script. The language appeared foreign yet perfectly comprehensible to Naruto. To my true heir, if you read these words, you have proven your bloodline through the goblin's verification and demonstrated the unique gift that marks our lineage. Many will fear what flows in your veins, but remember, ambition without wisdom is mere greed, cunning without purpose is simple manipulation, determination without compassion is only stubbornness. The chamber holds secrets beyond what Hogwarts remembers. The guardian awaits your command. The serpent's tongue opens many doors. Salazar Slytherin, the chamber, Dumbledore murmured, reading over Naruto's shoulder. The Chamber of Secrets, Salazar's legendary hidden room within Hogwarts. Its existence has been debated for centuries. Not by goblins, Ragnarok commented. We built much of Hogwarts' underground structure to the founder's specifications. But its location remains known only to those with Slytherin's gift. Parseltongue, Dumbledore clarified for Naruto's benefit. The ability to speak with serpents. A rare magical trait traditionally associated with Slytherin's descendants. Naruto recalled the scroll's reference to the serpent's tongue, and the strange feeling of understanding an unfamiliar language when reading it. I've never tried speaking to snakes before. Perhaps a demonstration? Ragnarok suggested, signaling his assistant who promptly retrieved a small glass terrarium containing a green serpent. The snake regarded Naruto with what seemed like boredom until their eyes met. Something shifted in Naruto's perception, a subtle alteration in how he processed language. Another speaker. How tedious, the snake commented in what sounded to Naruto like perfectly normal speech. I suppose you'll want the usual demonstration of my intelligence for your gawking audience. Naruto blinked in surprise. You're rather cynical for someone so small, he replied without thinking. The others in the room reacted immediately. Moody's wand hand twitched, Minister Leech took an involuntary step backward, and even Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly. Only the goblin seemed unperturbed. We've established you can speak. Congratulations. May I return to my terrarium now? The mice there are far better conversation partners. Sorry for the inconvenience, Naruto apologized, finding it strange that he couldn't distinguish between his normal speech and this serpent language except through others' reactions. Ragnarok nodded with satisfaction. The gift is confirmed. Parseltongue is exceedingly rare, currently, only one other living wizard possesses it. Tom Riddle, Dumbledore provided, his expression grave. Who now calls himself Lord Voldemort. The name produced visible discomfort in Minister Leech and a growl from Moody. Clearly, this Voldemort represented a significant threat, one potentially connected to Naruto through this shared ability. I believe, Dumbledore continued, that in light of today's revelations, we must reconsider Mr. Uzumaki's status. He is not merely a dimensional visitor, but the heir to one of Wizarding Britain's most significant historical figures and bloodlines. The political implications settled heavily across the room. Minister Leech tugged at his collar nervously. Yes, well, complicated situation. The Wizengamot will need to be informed, of course. Proper procedures established. Can't have interdimensional heirs appearing without regulatory oversight. Perhaps, Dumbledore suggested smoothly, Mr. Uzumaki might remain under Hogwarts protection while these matters are resolved. As a founder's heir, he has legitimate claim to residence there. The suggestion clearly relieved the minister, who seized the diplomatic exit gratefully. Excellent proposal. Keeps everything above board while the ministry establishes proper protocols. Moody can liaise regarding security concerns. Ragnarok interrupted the political maneuvering. Before administrative arrangements consume the remainder of our time, perhaps Mr. Uzumaki would like to visit his vault. As account managers, we are obligated to provide a full inventory and access demonstration to newly confirmed heirs. The prospect of examining Salazar Slytherin's 1,000-year-old possessions proved too intriguing to decline. After signing several formal documents, which Ragnarok assured would magically translate themselves for his understanding, Naruto followed the goblin director toward a different door at the chamber's rear. "We'll use my private cart," Ragnak explained. "The deepest vaults require special transportation arrangements." The Slytherin vault defied expectations. Rather than a simple chamber filled with gold, Vault 7 occupied an entire cavern system beneath Gringotts. The entrance, a massive circular door inscribed with serpents that parted at Naruto's Parseltongue command, revealed an underground complex that appeared to have once served as a research laboratory, library, and treasury combined. Gold coins filled several smaller chambers, piled in heaps that would have impressed even the wealthiest daimyo. But the true treasures lay beyond, artifacts whose purposes Naruto could only guess at, scrolls and books in dozens of languages, including some he recognized from the Uzushio archives, and strange instruments reminiscent of those in Dumbledore's office. "Your ancestor was a collector of knowledge above all else," Ragnak explained as they explored. "Much of what wizards today know of magical theory originated in Slytherin's research." In the vault's heart stood a life-sized statue of a dignified wizard in flowing robes, one hand extended as though in greeting. The statue's face bore aristocratic features with a calculating intelligence in its carved eyes, a family resemblance Naruto recognized from his own mirror. "Salazar Slytherin himself," Ragnak confirmed. "Commissioned during his lifetime, according to our records." At the statue's feet lay a small wooden chest, unadorned save for the serpent emblem matching Naruto's letter seal. When he approached, the chest's lock clicked open of its own accord. Inside lay a wand, 13 inches of dark wood with carvings resembling scales along its length. Beside it rested a silver locket bearing the same serpentine S as the letter seal. "The founder's personal effects," Ragnak whispered with uncharacteristic reverence. His wand and family locket, thought lost for centuries. When Naruto cautiously lifted the wand, a surge of energy, neither quite chakra nor the ambient magic he'd sensed at Hogwarts, coursed through his arm. Green and gold sparks erupted from the wand's tip, illuminating the chamber briefly before subsiding. "It accepts you," Dumbledore observed from the entrance. The headmaster had remained respectfully distant during Naruto's exploration. Most unusual for an ancestral wand to bond with a descendant after so many generations. Naruto examined the wand thoughtfully. "In my world, we channel chakra directly through hand seals. These wands seem to function as focusing tools." "A simplified but essentially accurate assessment," Dumbledore agreed. "Though I suspect you'll find your chakra and our magic have more commonalities than differences." The locket similarly responded to Naruto's touch, warming against his palm. Unlike the wand's dramatic display, however, the locket's reaction was subtle, a faint pulse of recognition, like Kurama acknowledging his presence. "It contains a fragment of power," Kurama commented. "Not unlike a Jinchuriki seal, though much smaller in scale." Naruto slipped the locket around his neck, where it settled comfortably against his chest. The weight felt strangely familiar, as though he'd worn it in another life. "I believe we've imposed upon Director Ragnak's hospitality long enough," Dumbledore suggested gently. "Perhaps we might continue our explorations another day. I imagine the minister is anxious to inform the Wisengamot of today's developments." The political reality of his situation reasserted itself. Naruto carefully returned the wand to its box. He would need proper instruction before attempting to use it, and secured several scrolls written in scripts he recognized from Uzushio. The locket, however, he kept around his neck, feeling an inexplicable importance to maintaining its connection. "Thank you, Director Ragnak," Naruto said formally, bowing in the traditional shinobi manner. "Your assistance has been invaluable." The goblin seemed pleased by the gesture. "Gringotts serves its account holders with discretion and efficiency, Mr. Uzumaki. I look forward to a productive relationship." As they departed the bank, Naruto sensed the subtle shift in how others regarded him, no longer merely a strange visitor from another dimension, but the heir to a legendary magical bloodline and unimaginable wealth. The minister's deference had increased noticeably, while Moody's suspicious glares had intensified. Dumbledore alone seemed unchanged, his eyes twinkling with the same enigmatic curiosity as before. "An eventful morning," the headmaster commented as they prepared for the return Portkey journey. I suspect your presence in our world will continue to yield fascinating revelations, Mr. Uzumaki. Just Naruto is fine, he replied, finding the formal address uncomfortable. Naruto, then, Dumbledore agreed. And you must call me Albus when we're not in formal company. I believe this marks the beginning of what promises to be an extraordinary friendship. The portkey activated, whisking them back toward Hogwarts and whatever revelations awaited in the Chamber of Secrets. News traveled with magical speed. By evening, whispers of the newly discovered Slytherin heir permeated throughout wizarding society, from Hogwarts hallways to the Ministry's departments to the exclusive drawing rooms of pureblood families. Naruto, escorted by Dumbledore to the Great Hall for dinner, felt hundreds of curious eyes tracking his movements. Students whispered behind their hands while professors attempted to maintain dignified disinterest despite obvious curiosity. Your arrival has caused quite a stir, Dumbledore observed mildly as they approached the staff table. Though I've instructed the faculty and students to respect your privacy, you may find yourself the subject of considerable attention. I'm used to it, Naruto replied, recalling how his Jinchuriki status had once made him the object of fearful stares. Though for different reasons. Dumbledore introduced him to the assembled faculty, most of whom greeted him with cautious cordiality. The stern-looking Professor McGonagall from the Forest Encounter maintained professional politeness, while tiny Professor Flitwick displayed enthusiastic academic interest. A robust, earthy woman named Professor Sprout offered genuine warmth, while a young potions master named Slughorn practically vibrated with networking ambition. Absolutely delighted to meet Salazar's heir. Slughorn gushed, pumping Naruto's hand vigorously. I'm head of Slytherin House, you know. We simply must arrange a special dinner. I host a little club for students of particular talent or connection. You'd be our guest of honor, of course. Before Naruto could formulate a response to this transparent social climbing, the Great Hall's doors burst open. A dark-haired witch strode purposefully between the student tables, her aristocratic features set in determined lines. Behind her followed an older wizard whose regal bearing and silver-tipped cane screamed political power. Ah, Dumbledore murmured. The Black family appears to have caught wind of your arrival. The witch stopped before the staff table, fixing Naruto with an appraising stare that reminded him of Tsunade evaluating a potentially useful asset. Is it true? She demanded without preamble. You're Slytherin's heir. From another dimension? Cygnus, Dumbledore addressed her companion, your daughter appears to have forgotten basic courtesy. The wizard inclined his head slightly. My apologies, headmaster. The news rather overwhelmed usual protocol. May I present my eldest daughter, Bellatrix Black, 7th-year Slytherin prefect? The young woman, perhaps 18 or 19, displayed no embarrassment at her father's gentle rebuke. Her dark eyes remained fixed on Naruto with hungry intensity. Uzumaki Naruto, he introduced himself, offering a formal bow rather than the handshake that seemed customary here. Bellatrix's lips curled into a smile that combined ambition and genuine curiosity. The entire school's buzzing with rumors. They say you appeared from nowhere, breached Hogwarts wards, and claimed Salazar's vault. Her gaze lingered on the locket visible at his throat. And that you speak Parseltongue. The direct confrontation reminded Naruto of Anko Mitarashi's interrogation style, aggressive questions designed to provoke revealing responses. He chose his words carefully. Some of those rumors appear accurate. Others might be exaggerated. How diplomatic, she replied, eyes narrowing slightly. Perhaps you truly are Slytherin's heir after all. Cygnus Black cleared his throat. My daughter's enthusiasm reflects House Black's historical alliance with Slytherin's lineage. As one of Britain's oldest pureblood families, we naturally take interest in such significant developments. The political maneuvering was transparent even to someone unfamiliar with wizarding society. Naruto recognized the approach. Powerful clans had made similar overtures to Konoha's leadership during post-war reconstructions. I appreciate House Black's interest, Naruto replied neutrally. I'm still learning about wizarding Britain's social structures. A situation we'd be delighted to remedy, Cygnus offered smoothly. Perhaps you might join us for dinner at Black Manor. My wife and other daughters would be honored to meet Salazar's heir. Before Naruto could respond, Dumbledore interjected. A generous invitation, Cygnus. However, Mr. Uzumaki's schedule remains rather full with ministry obligations and historical research. Perhaps in a few weeks, once he's better settled. The diplomatic deflection earned Dumbledore a sharp glance from Bellatrix, whose disappointment transformed almost instantly into renewed determination. Then I volunteer to assist with the historical research, she declared. As a Newt-level history of magic student with access to the Black family library, I could provide valuable context regarding Slytherin's era. Her father appeared both proud of her initiative and mildly embarrassed by her forwardness. An excellent suggestion, Dumbledore agreed unexpectedly. Academic collaboration might indeed prove beneficial. Perhaps you could begin tomorrow afternoon. I believe Mr. Uzumaki plans to explore the Chamber of Secrets in the morning. The announcement produced audible gasps throughout the hall, where students had abandoned all pretense of not eavesdropping. Bellatrix's eyes widened with undisguised excitement. The Chamber of Secrets. It's real. Her voice dropped to an eager whisper. And you're going to open it? Naruto nodded, seeing no reason to conceal what would obviously become public knowledge. According to Salazar's letter, it contains information about my family's connection to this world. I'm coming with you, Bellatrix stated, not a request but a declaration. Cygnus looked scandalized. Bellatrix, you cannot simply invite yourself to, actually, Dumbledore interrupted thoughtfully, having witnesses from both faculty and student body might prove valuable, given the chamber's historical significance. I plan to accompany Mr. Uzumaki myself, along with Professors Binns and McGonagall. Miss Black's participation would provide a Slytherin house perspective. The diplomatic solution satisfied everyone except perhaps Cygnus, who clearly had hoped for a private family connection. Nevertheless, he graciously accepted the compromise. Then we shall look forward to hearing about this historic exploration. Bellatrix, do remember you represent both House Black and Slytherin in this endeavor. Of course, Father, she replied with sudden decorum that fooled no one. As the Blacks departed, Naruto caught Bellatrix glancing back at him with an expression of calculating interest that promised tomorrow's expedition would be anything but straightforward. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled with amusement. I believe you've made quite an impression on Miss Black. She's one of our most talented students, brilliant but rather intense in her pursuits. I noticed, Naruto replied dryly. Is her family important in wizarding politics? The Blacks are among our oldest pureblood families, wealthy, politically connected, and traditionally aligned with values emphasizing blood purity and magical heritage. Their interest in Slytherin's heir is predictable, though I confess Bellatrix's enthusiasm exceeds even my expectations. The parallels to shinobi clan politics provided Naruto a familiar framework. The Blacks sounded not unlike the Hyuga, traditional, proud, and keenly aware of bloodline significance. Bellatrix, however, reminded him more of Sasuke in his most obsessive phases, brilliance coupled with intensity that bordered on fanaticism. Dinner concluded with minimal further disruptions, though Naruto noticed several students attempting to position themselves nearby, presumably to overhear conversations. Dumbledore eventually escorted him back to his guest quarters, providing a brief explanation of tomorrow's planned exploration. The chamber's entrance has remained hidden for centuries, though its existence features in Hogwarts, a history as one of the castle's greatest mysteries. Legend claims it contains a monster that only the heir of Slytherin can control. A monster? Naruto questioned. Most historians consider it metaphorical, perhaps referring to dangerous knowledge rather than an actual creature. Others suggest it might be a basilisk or similar serpentine guardian. Dumbledore paused outside Naruto's door. Whatever we discover tomorrow, I suspect it will shed light not only on Hogwarts' past but perhaps on your unexpected arrival as well. Left alone in his quarters, Naruto extracted the scrolls he'd collected from the Slytherin vault. The writings, a mixture of ancient Uzumaki script and what appeared to be early Parseltongue, detailed theories about dimensional barriers and bloodline transference across magical boundaries. These read like research notes, Naruto observed to Kurama. As if Slytherin was deliberately experimenting with crossing dimensions. And perhaps succeeded, the fox replied. Which might explain your mother's clan appearing in our world with unusual sealing abilities that resembled this world's magic. The theory aligned with both worlds' historical timelines. If Salazar Slytherin had sent his daughter eastward through a dimensional portal approximately 1,000 years ago, that would correspond roughly with the earliest known records of the Uzumaki clan in the land of whirlpools. Tomorrow should provide answers, Naruto mused, fingering the locket that hung warm against his chest. One way or another. Sleep came eventually, though his dreams swirled with strange visions, an enormous serpent with intelligent eyes, a chamber vast and ancient, and a woman with wild dark hair and burning gaze who stood at a crossroads between worlds, her hand extended in either invitation or warning. Morning arrived with a sense of anticipation that permeated the castle. Students whispered in corridors as Naruto passed, flanked by Dumbledore and McGonagall, with the ghost of Professor Binns floating eerily alongside them. Bellatrix awaited their arrival at the second-floor corridor, practically vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Good morning," she greeted, her attention focused entirely on Naruto rather than the professors. "I've been researching Slytherin's architectural contributions to Hogwarts all night. The chamber's entrance is rumored to be connected to plumbing installations added in the 18th century. "Indeed, Miss Black," Professor Binns acknowledged in his droning voice. "Though accounts vary regarding its precise location. Salazar's letter had mentioned, the serpent's tongue opens many doors, suggesting Parseltongue would reveal the entrance." As they walked, Naruto extended his senses, searching for anything resembling the chakra signature of a concealment jutsu. Near a girl's lavatory, he paused. "There's something here. The energy flow, it's different." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly. "Fascinating. You can sense magical signatures." "Something similar," Naruto explained, approaching the bathroom door. "In my world, I can detect chakra patterns. Here, the energy feels wilder, less structured, but still perceptible." The bathroom appeared ordinary, white porcelain sinks arranged in a circular formation, wooden toilet stalls along one wall, and tiled floors that had seen better days. Yet when Naruto approached the sinks, the locket at his throat warmed noticeably. Examining the fixtures closely, he discovered a tiny serpent etched into one of the copper taps. Almost instinctively, he addressed it in Parseltongue, "Open." The command produced immediate results. The sink receded into the floor, revealing a large pipe wide enough for a person to slide down. Stale air wafted upward from the dark passage, carrying the scent of ancient stone and something distinctly reptilian. "The Chamber of Secrets," Dumbledore breathed, peering into the opening. "After all these centuries." Bellatrix moved forward eagerly, but McGonagall placed a restraining hand on her shoulder. "Patience, Miss Black. We proceed with caution." Naruto created a shadow clone, sending it down the pipe as reconnaissance. Through their shared consciousness, he monitored the clone's descent through pitch darkness before landing in what appeared to be a stone tunnel littered with small animal bones. "It's safe to descend," he reported. "Though the landing needs cushioning." One by one, they slid down the pipe, Naruto first, followed by Bellatrix, who could barely contain her excitement, then the professors. Dumbledore created a cushioning charm at the bottom that prevented any injuries from the steep drop. Lumos, Bellatrix, and the professors intoned, their wand tips illuminating a tunnel that stretched ahead into darkness. Naruto, working on instinct, channeled chakra into the Slytherin locket, which began emitting a soft green glow that strengthened as they progressed deeper beneath the castle. The tunnel eventually opened into a vast chamber supported by towering stone pillars carved with intertwining serpents. Water pooled on the floor, reflecting the eerie light from their wands and Naruto's locket. At the chamber's far end stood an enormous statue of Salazar Slytherin, his bearded face stern and commanding. Remarkable preservation, Professor Binns commented, his ghostly form drifting between pillars. The architectural style confirms 10th century construction, consistent with Hogwarts' founding. Bellatrix had moved ahead, her wand illuminating what appeared to be a desk and bookshelves carved directly from the stone wall. "Look at these," she called excitedly. "Manuscripts in Parseltongue. And diagrams of some kind of portal." Naruto approached the statue, drawn by an inexplicable sense of familiarity. The locket pulsed against his chest, its rhythm matching his heartbeat. Following instinct, he addressed the stone face, "Speak to me, Slytherin, greatest of the Hogwarts Four." The statue's mouth began to open, eliciting gasps from the others who backed away rapidly. McGonagall raised her wand defensively, while Dumbledore watched with intense focus. Instead of the monster many clearly expected, a stone pedestal rose from the statue's mouth, bearing a basin similar to the one used in the Gringotts' inheritance ritual. Beside it lay a scroll sealed with the now familiar serpent emblem. "Approach, heir of my blood," a disembodied voice echoed throughout the chamber, speaking Parseltongue that only Naruto understood. "Complete what was begun 1,000 years past." The others reacted to the sound, Bellatrix with fascination, the professors with wary caution, though none comprehended the words. "What did it say?" Bellatrix demanded, moving closer despite McGonagall's warning gesture. "It wants me to complete something Salazar started," Naruto replied, ascending the stone steps toward the pedestal. "Something involving blood." Dumbledore moved forward. "Naruto, blood rituals can be extraordinarily powerful and often dangerous. Perhaps we should examine this further before proceeding." The warning was reasonable, yet Naruto sensed no malevolence in the chamber's magic, only expectation, as though the very stones had awaited his arrival for centuries. The locket continued its rhythmic pulsing, drawing him forward until he stood before the basin. The scroll opened at his touch, revealing instructions written in the same script as Salazar's letter. It detailed a ritual designed to stabilize a connection between worlds, not to close the dimensional barrier, but to create a permanent bridge allowing passage in both directions. "It's not dangerous," Naruto explained, scanning the text. "It's a connection ritual. Salazar sent his daughter, my ancestor, to another dimension, but maintained a blood link that would someday allow her descendants to return." "Interdimensional magic?" McGonagall looked scandalized. "That violates fundamental magical laws." "Only those established centuries after Slytherin's time," Binns corrected pedantically. "Early magical theory placed fewer restrictions on dimensional experimentation." Bellatrix had somehow positioned herself beside Naruto, reading over his shoulder despite her inability to comprehend Parseltongue script. "You're saying Salazar Slytherin deliberately sent his bloodline to another world? Why?" The scroll provided no clear answer to that question, focusing instead on the technical aspects of the ritual. Whatever Salazar's motivations, he had clearly intended for his bloodline to someday return to the wizarding world. "The ritual requires the heir's blood willingly given," Naruto translated, "combined with the essence of Slytherin preserved in the locket." Dumbledore studied the basin thoughtfully. "This appears similar to a pensieve, a device for viewing and preserving memories. Perhaps Salazar left something to explain his purposes." The theory aligned with the scroll's instructions. Naruto removed the locket, placing it carefully in the basin as directed. Following the ritual's specifications, he pricked his finger with a conjured needle, allowing 3 drops of blood to fall upon the locket. The reaction was immediate and spectacular. The basin illuminated with brilliant emerald light that coalesced into a swirling vortex above their heads. From this vortex emerged the translucent figure of a dignified wizard, Salazar Slytherin himself, preserved as a memory much like the Edo Tensei technique, though without physical form. "My heir has returned," the apparition stated, now speaking in accented but understandable English rather than Parseltongue. "After how many generations?" "Approximately 50, Naruto replied, estimating based on average generational spans. Slytherin nodded as though this matched his expectations. "Longer than hoped, yet within calculated parameters." His gaze swept across the others present, lingering on Dumbledore. Another Gryffindor as headmaster. Some things never change. Dumbledore inclined his head respectfully. Albus Dumbledore, at your service. Your chamber has remained hidden for centuries, though not forgotten. As intended, Slytherin replied before focusing on Bellatrix. A black, unless I miss my guess. The eyes are distinctive. Bellatrix straightened proudly. Bellatrix Black, descended from the noble and most ancient house of Black. Indeed. Your ancestor Ophiuchus was a promising student. Slytherin's attention returned to Naruto. But you are the one who matters, my blood returned from across the veil. Tell me, does your world still practice the sealing arts I taught my daughter? The question confirmed Naruto's suspicions about the origins of Uzushiyogakure's famous techniques. The Uzumaki clan became renowned for sealing jutsu, Fuin jutsu. It's how I arrived here, accidentally. Not accident but destiny, Slytherin corrected. The blood calls across dimensions when the time is right. I foresaw a moment when both worlds would need the bridge restored, when threats would arise that required powers from both realms to combat. His gaze intensified, studying Naruto more carefully. You carry another entity within you, powerful, ancient. This was not foreseen, yet perhaps advantageous. Kurama stirred uneasily at this recognition. I dislike being observed by spirits, the fox grumbled. Professor McGonagall found her voice. Are we to understand you deliberately sent your daughter to another dimension as some sort of contingency plan? Precisely, Slytherin confirmed. While my colleagues focused on building Hogwarts, I looked beyond, to threats that transcended our world's boundaries. My research revealed dimensional barriers thinning cyclically every 1,000 years. I calculated that the next convergence would bring unprecedented danger. Bellatrix edged closer to Naruto, her earlier arrogance tempered by genuine awe at witnessing Slytherin himself. What danger? She asked. Death unbound, Slytherin replied cryptically. A force seeking to master what should remain untamed. The answer raised more questions than it answered, but before anyone could press further, Slytherin's apparition addressed Naruto directly. You now stand as my heir in two worlds, master of serpent speech, wielder of sealing arts. The chamber recognizes your blood. The guardian will accept your command. Guardian? Naruto questioned, recalling Dumbledore's mention of a monster. Thessalia, Slytherin called, addressing a shadowed alcove previously unnoticed beyond the statue. Come forth and greet your new master. A massive serpentine form. Uncoiled from the darkness, an enormous snake at least 60 feet in length, with iridescent emerald scales and eyes covered by translucent membranes. The creature slithered forward, its movement creating ripples across the chamber's shallow pools. Professor McGonagall gasped, raising her wand. Basilisk. Don't look at its eyes. Peace, Minerva, Dumbledore cautioned, though his own wand remained ready. Its killing gaze appears shielded. Thessalia's sight is veiled in the presence of humans who are not heirs, Slytherin explained. She has guarded the chamber for a millennium, preserving my research and awaiting the blood's return. The basilisk lowered its massive head before Naruto. Master, it hissed in Parseltongue. At last. Naruto approached cautiously, extending one hand toward the creature. I am Uzumaki Naruto, he introduced himself in the serpent language. Though I don't fully understand what being Slytherin's heir means in this world. It means many things, the basilisk replied. Responsibility. Power. Choices. The same as in any world. The philosophical response surprised Naruto, who had expected a more primitive consciousness. You're more articulate than I anticipated. A millennium provides ample time for reflection, Thessalia responded with what sounded remarkably like dry humor. I have guarded Salazar's knowledge and waited for one worthy to claim it. Slytherin's apparition observed their exchange with approval. The blood bond is confirmed. Thessalia recognizes your authority, as will other serpents and the chamber itself. The basilisk's presence had produced dramatically different reactions in the observers. Professor McGonagall maintained wary distance, her wand still raised defensively. Professor Binns floated closer with academic curiosity, unbothered by potential danger due to his ghostly state. Dumbledore watched the interaction with calculated interest, his initial concern balanced by scholarly fascination. Bellatrix, however, had moved closest of all, her expression transformed by witnessing what few had seen in 1,000 years. "It's beautiful," she whispered, studying the basilisk with naked admiration rather than fear. Her reaction to deadly power revealed much about her character, respect bordering on reverence. "The chamber holds more than Thessalia," Slytherin continued, gesturing toward the stone bookshelves Bellatrix had discovered earlier. "My research spans dimensional theory, soul magic, and the nature of death itself. As heir, this knowledge is your birthright, though I caution that some paths explored therein have proven too dangerous to pursue." The warning from a wizard known historically for dark magical experimentation carried significant weight. Naruto glanced at Dumbledore, whose thoughtful expression suggested similar concerns. "Your arrival activates the final phase of my design," Slytherin explained. "The blood bridge between worlds is now permanently established. You may travel between realms at will using the ritual detailed in my grimoire." This revelation changed everything. What had begun as an accidental dimensional displacement now offered Naruto unprecedented freedom, the ability to maintain connections to both worlds rather than choosing between them. "There is one final matter," Slytherin's apparition continued, its form beginning to fade slightly. "The locket you wear contains more than memory. It holds the key to understanding death's true nature, knowledge I gathered but never fully implemented." The Master of Death, Naruto recalled from the initial summons that had brought him to this world. "A misleading title," Slytherin corrected. "Death cannot be mastered, only understood, respected, and occasionally, negotiated with. 3 objects exist in this world that together grant such understanding. The locket will guide you to them when needed." His form faded further, the memory preservation spell reaching its limits. "Choose allies wisely, heir of my blood. Ancient forces stir in both worlds. The serpent's path lies between light and shadow, neither dark nor light but pragmatic, determined, and ultimately protective of what matters most." With those final words, Slytherin's apparition dissolved, the emerald light receding back into the locket which now pulsed with renewed energy. Naruto lifted it from the basin, feeling its warmth as he replaced it around his neck. Silence filled the chamber until Dumbledore spoke softly. "It appears, Naruto, that your arrival was indeed no accident. Salazar Slytherin himself arranged for his bloodline to return at this specific moment in history." The implications hung heavily in the air. Prophecies and destiny had shaped Naruto's life before, he had been the child of prophecy in his own world, bearing responsibilities that nearly crushed him. Now it seemed another prophetic role awaited in this dimension. "The objects he mentioned," Bellatrix said, her voice uncharacteristically subdued. "They must be the deathly hallows from the children's tale. The Elder Wand, the Resurrection Stone, the Cloak of Invisibility." Dumbledore's expression flickered momentarily before returning to careful neutrality. "Legends often contain kernels of truth, Miss Black. Though separating fact from fiction can prove challenging." The headmaster approached Naruto, speaking quietly. "Whatever Salazar's intentions, you now face choices that will significantly impact both worlds. Hogwarts remains at your disposal as a founder's heir, but I caution that others will seek to influence or control your path forward." His gaze shifted meaningfully toward Bellatrix, who had moved to examine Slytherin's bookshelves with barely contained excitement. The warning was clear: powerful factions would view Naruto as either ally or threat, with no neutral ground available. "What about Thessalia?" McGonagall asked practically, eyeing the basilisk who had curled contentedly around one of the chamber's pillars. "We can hardly leave a deadly creature beneath a school. I have protected this school for centuries," the basilisk responded in Parseltongue, which Naruto translated. No student has ever been harmed by my presence. I remain bound to serve the heir and guard Salazar's legacy. Dumbledore considered this thoughtfully. Perhaps, with appropriate precautions and Naruto's direction, Thessalia might continue her traditional role. The chamber itself contains historical and magical knowledge too valuable to abandon. The diplomatic solution satisfied no one completely but offered a reasonable compromise. After further examination of the chamber's contents, revealing libraries, laboratories, and what appeared to be a portal framework matching diagrams in Naruto's Uzushio scrolls, they prepared to return to the castle above. As they ascended via a previously hidden staircase, far more dignified than the entrance pipe, Bellatrix maneuvered to walk alongside Naruto. Her earlier haughty demeanor had transformed into something more complex, respect mingled with intense curiosity. "You're nothing like what anyone expected," she observed quietly. "The Daily Prophet will probably claim you're the next Dark Lord by tomorrow morning." "Dark Lord?" Naruto questioned. "Powerful parselmouths with mysterious origins tend to make people nervous," she explained with surprising candor. "Especially with everything happening lately with the Death Eaters and their leader." "Voldemort," Naruto recalled Dumbledore mentioning the name. Bellatrix flinched slightly at the direct reference, a telling reaction. "My family has complicated political relationships. Many traditional pure-blood houses sympathize with his stated goals, if not his methods." The careful phrasing revealed volumes about Wizarding Society's factional divisions and Bellatrix's own position within them. Naruto recognized the subtle overture, not quite an alliance offer, but an opening to potential dialogue outside official channels. "In my world, I've seen how bloodline prejudice leads only to suffering," he replied, thinking of the Hyuga clan and numerous other conflicts. "But I've also witnessed how deeply held traditions can change when people choose a different path." Bellatrix studied him with renewed intensity. "You speak from experience." "I've fought in a war that nearly destroyed my world," Naruto confirmed. Victory meant little without reconciliation afterward. The conversation paused as they reached the castle proper, where they found a crowd of students and faculty awaiting their return. News of the chamber's opening had apparently spread throughout Hogwarts despite attempts at discretion. Dumbledore addressed the gathering with practiced calm. "The Chamber of Secrets has indeed been located and safely explored. Classes will continue as scheduled while historical documentation proceeds under faculty supervision." The deliberate understatement produced a wave of whispers and speculative glances toward Naruto, who found himself the center of unwanted attention once again. Unlike his gradual acceptance in Konoha, however, this scrutiny carried political undertones he was only beginning to comprehend. As the crowd dispersed, Naruto noticed a young blonde witch observing from a distance, her features marking her as likely related to Bellatrix, though with a cooler, more reserved demeanor. Bellatrix followed his gaze and smirked slightly. "My sister, Narcissa," she explained. 2 years below me. Equally curious about you, I'd imagine, though she'd never show it so openly." The younger black sister maintained her composed observation for a moment longer before departing with a group of Slytherin students. Unlike Bellatrix's direct approach, Narcissa's careful distance suggested a more calculating assessment. "The noble and most ancient House of Black will undoubtedly extend another dinner invitation soon," Bellatrix predicted. "Father was practically apoplectic when I fire-called about the chamber. Mother's probably already planning seating arrangements to position you advantageously." The casual revelation of family communication hinted at how quickly information traveled among influential circles, and how rapidly political maneuvering would intensify around Slytherin's heir. Dumbledore approached, his expression suggesting awareness of their conversation's subtext. "Miss Black, I believe you have transfiguration this afternoon. Professor McGonagall has graciously exempted you from today's assignment given your educational participation in historical research, but she expects your attendance nonetheless." The polite dismissal brought a flash of annoyance to Bellatrix's eyes, quickly masked by practiced decorum. "Of course, Headmaster. Naruto, I look forward to continuing our discussion about interdimensional magical theory tomorrow." As she departed, Dumbledore sighed softly. "Miss Black possesses extraordinary magical talent and intelligence. Her family's influence has shaped her worldview significantly, but her core character remains unfinalized. The assessment matched Naruto's own impression. Bellatrix Black stood at a crossroads, brilliant and ambitious, yet not fully committed to any particular path. Her interest in him represented more than political maneuvering or academic curiosity. She sought direction, purpose that transcended traditional expectations. She reminds me of friends who struggled with inherited expectations, Naruto observed, thinking of Neji, Sasuke, and others whose predetermined paths had caused such conflict. A perceptive comparison, Dumbledore acknowledged. The Black family traditions weigh heavily on all three sisters. Bellatrix, Andromeda, and Narcissa each respond differently to those pressures. As they walked through Hogwarts corridors, Naruto considered how quickly his situation had evolved, from accidental visitor to recognized heir with responsibilities to both worlds. The discovery that his Uzumaki heritage originated with Slytherin's daughter explained much about his clan's unique abilities while raising countless new questions. The path of Slytherin's heir will not be easy, Dumbledore commented as they reached Naruto's quarters. Especially in these troubled times. Our world stands at a precipice, with Lord Voldemort gathering power and ancient prejudices fueling conflict. Your arrival, a Parselmouth with unprecedented abilities and legitimate claim to Slytherin's legacy, will inevitably draw attention from all factions. I didn't ask for this role, Naruto replied, echoing sentiments he'd expressed years earlier when burdened with Jinchuriki responsibilities. The most important roles are rarely chosen, Dumbledore observed with surprising empathy. Yet how we fulfill them defines us more than the circumstances of their assignment. The philosophical statement reminded Naruto of conversations with the third Hokage, wisdom earned through decades of leadership and difficult choices. Whatever Salazar Slytherin intended, Dumbledore continued, you now possess knowledge and resources spanning two worlds. How you employ them remains entirely your choice. As the headmaster departed, Naruto contemplated the locket against his chest, its steady pulse a constant reminder of unexpected heritage and newfound responsibility. Whatever destiny Salazar had envisioned for his returned heir would unfold against a backdrop of wizarding politics, ancient magics, and interdimensional concerns that even Kurama found disquieting. This world's conflicts seem both familiar and strange, the fox observed. Blood prejudice, power struggles, prophecy, yet with different rules governing reality itself. And somewhere in the middle, Naruto replied, fingering the locket thoughtfully, a bridge between worlds that Salazar created for reasons we don't fully understand. One thing remained certain, his accidental arrival had set events in motion that would reshape both dimensions. As heir to Slytherin's legacy and carrier of Uzumaki's sealing knowledge, he stood uniquely positioned to influence whatever conflict Salazar had foreseen. Tomorrow would bring ministry officials, press inquiries, and inevitably, more direct approaches from factions seeking alliance or information. Bellatrix Black represented merely the first of many who would attempt to sway Slytherin's heir toward particular agendas. Yet tonight, Naruto would study the scrolls recovered from vault and chamber alike, seeking to understand the dimensional bridge that had brought him here, and perhaps, how to control his passage between worlds rather than remaining at the mercy of ancient blood magic. For an Uzumaki who had mastered the sealing techniques of his ancestors, for a Jinchuriki who had achieved harmony with his tailed beast, for a shinobi who had helped end a war that threatened all nations, the challenges of wizarding Britain represented a new battlefield requiring different tactics but the same unwavering determination. The true heir of Salazar Slytherin had returned to Hogwarts. What that meant for both worlds remained to be seen. Chapter 2, Blood and Magic. Emerald flame danced across Naruto's fingertips, neither burning nor consuming his flesh. The Slytherin locket rested against his chest, pulsing in rhythm with the magical energy he manipulated. 3 weeks of experimentation had yielded fascinating results. Chakra and magic, while fundamentally different, could interact in ways that defied both shinobi and wizarding conventions. Again, Flitwick instructed, his diminutive form practically vibrating with academic excitement. The charms professor had proven the most enthusiastic about Naruto's unique abilities, volunteering daily sessions to explore the intersection between magical and chakra manipulation. Naruto channeled chakra through the hawthorn wand Ollivander had selected for him, curiously receptive to your foreign energies, Mr. Uzumaki, while simultaneously forming a one-handed seal. The resulting spelljutsu hybrid shot across the room of requirement, transforming the target dummy into a perfect shadow clone that proceeded to perform a complex taijutsu kata before dispelling itself. Extraordinary. Flitwick squeaked, furiously scribbling notes. You've essentially combined transfiguration with animation charms, yet the autonomous behavior suggests something closer to true duplication rather than mere simulacrum. In my world, shadow clones possess consciousness, they're not just copies, Naruto explained, twirling the wand between his fingers. The tool still felt foreign compared to direct chakra manipulation, yet offered precision that pure jutsu sometimes lacked. They can think independently, gather information, even learn skills that transfer back to the original when dispelled. The theoretical implications are staggering, Flitwick mused. Wizarding clones are mere illusions or temporary constructs without true consciousness. Your technique suggests consciousness itself can be divided and reintegrated without spiritual damage. The philosophical direction reminded Naruto of conversations with Shikamaru, abstract concepts grounded in practical application. The shadow clone jutsu was forbidden in my world precisely because splitting consciousness is dangerous for most people. It requires specific chakra reserves and mental resilience. Much like our more demanding spells require appropriate magical core strength, Flitwick nodded. Though I've never encountered magic that literally divides the caster's mind. Their experimental session continued, each technique revealing new insights into the compatibility between chakra and magic. Basic jutsus required less wand movement but more precise chakra control, complex spells benefited from hand seals to stabilize their effects. The hybridization produced results neither tradition could achieve independently. One final attempt before dinner? Flitwick suggested, gesturing toward the practice dummies. Naruto nodded, concentrating on his most challenging integration yet. Forming 3 shadow clones, he channeled wind-natured chakra through his wand while the clones prepared complementary elements, fire, water, and earth. The synchronized release created a localized meteorological phenomenon, a miniature storm system complete with lightning, rain, and swirling winds that devastated the target area before dissipating. Flitwick's applause echoed throughout the chamber. Magnificent. Weather manipulation of that precision typically requires at least 7 coordinated casters. The applications for elemental transfiguration alone, a discreet cough interrupted the professor's enthusiastic theorizing. Narcissa Black stood in the doorway, her platinum blonde hair and immaculate robes contrasting with the room's battle-worn appearance. Professor Flitwick, she acknowledged with perfect poise before turning to Naruto. Mr. Uzumaki, Professor Slughorn requested I deliver this invitation to his gathering this evening. She extended a cream-colored envelope embossed with emerald wax. He was quite insistent about your attendance. Unlike her sister's direct intensity, Narcissa projected calculated composure, every movement deliberately controlled, each word precisely chosen. At 16, she already embodied aristocratic refinement that most adults never achieved. Thank you, Miss Black, Naruto replied, accepting the envelope. 3 weeks at Hogwarts had taught him the importance of formal address in certain contexts, particularly with purebloods who value traditional etiquette. Please tell Professor Slughorn I'll attend if time permits. A flicker of amusement crossed Narcissa's features, so briefly most would miss it entirely. The invitation includes a postscript mentioning that both Minister Leach and Director Croker from the Department of Mysteries have specifically requested your presence. The political maneuvering was transparent. Slughorn's casual gatherings functioned as networking opportunities where influential figures could interact outside official channels. Naruto's status as Slytherin's heir made him valuable social currency for the ambitious professor. Then please convey my appreciation for the invitation, Naruto amended, recognizing the diplomatic necessity. Narcissa nodded, mission accomplished, then hesitated fractionally, a subtle deviation from her usual efficiency. Bella mentioned you've mastered wandless transfiguration through your alternative techniques. I admit scientific curiosity regarding the practical applications. The request marked her first personal interest beyond formal interactions or family-directed communications. While Bellatrix pursued knowledge with volcanic intensity, Narcissa's approach resembled glacial precision, slow, methodical, and ultimately perhaps more transformative. I'd be happy to demonstrate sometime, Naruto offered. Though Professor Flitwick could better explain the magical theory involved. Perhaps after Slughorn's dinner, Narcissa suggested with practiced casualness. Bella will undoubtedly monopolize the official discussion with questions about dimensional barriers. A separate conversation might prove more productive. The invitation carried undercurrents beyond academic interest, a calculated step toward establishing independent connection outside her sister's shadow. Narcissa had observed from a distance these past weeks, assessing while Bellatrix engaged directly. 7:30 in the Slytherin common room? Naruto suggested, recognizing the significance of her overture. The alcove library would offer fewer interruptions, she countered smoothly. 8 o'clock. With a perfect curtsy to Flitwick and precise nod to Naruto, she departed, leaving a lingering scent of winter roses and parchment. The younger Miss Black possesses remarkable political instincts, Flitwick observed once she had gone. Quite different from her sister's approach, yet potentially more effective in certain contexts. The assessment aligned with Naruto's own observations. Where Bellatrix pursued knowledge and connection with hurricane force, Narcissa navigated social currents with strategic precision. Different methods, equally formidable. The Black sisters represent contrasting aspects of Slytherin House at its finest, Flitwick continued, packing away experimental notes. Ambition manifested through intensity versus calculation. Their middle sister, Andromeda, embodies yet another interpretation, ambition tempered by empathy. I haven't met Andromeda, Naruto noted, dispelling the remaining practice dummies with a flick of his wand. She graduated last year. Caused quite the stir by accepting a ministry position in Muggle relations rather than the traditional aristocratic marriage. Rumor suggests a controversial romance factored in her decision. Flitwick checked his pocket watch. Goodness, nearly dinner time. And you'll need to prepare for Horace's gathering afterward. As they exited the room of requirement, Naruto considered the evening's social chess match. Slughorn's Slug Club represented the intersection of academic prestige and political networking, precisely the environment Naruto had avoided during his shinobi career, preferring direct action to diplomatic maneuvering. Politics exists in every world, Kurama observed dryly. Even the Sage of Six Paths needed political allies. I preferred punching problems into submission, Naruto replied mentally. And how often did that approach produce lasting solutions, the fox countered. The point landed effectively. Even peace after the Fourth Shinobi War had required delicate negotiations alongside battlefield victories. Here, understanding the social landscape proved equally important to mastering magical techniques. After a quick dinner in the Great Hall, where students still watched him with poorly concealed fascination 3 weeks after his arrival, Naruto returned to his quarters to prepare for Slughorn's gathering. The room of requirements training had left minimal physical evidence thanks to his enhanced regeneration, but propriety demanded appropriate attire for meeting ministry officials. His wardrobe had expanded considerably since arrival, partly through Dumbledore's arrangements and partly through Gringotts' facilitated purchases. Tonight he selected formal robes in muted orange with black and silver accents, acknowledging his personal preferences while conforming sufficiently to wizarding fashion. You clean up adequately, Kurama commented as Naruto examined his reflection. Though I maintain whiskers look better on foxes than humans. The reference to his facial markings, present since birth due to his Jinchuriki status, prompted a wry smile. At least here they think it's a magical bloodline trait. Slughorn's quarters had been magically expanded for the evening, transforming the potions professor's already generous accommodation into a palatial entertainment space. Crystalline chandeliers illuminated richly upholstered furniture arranged in conversational groupings, while enchanted silver trays floated among guests bearing appetizers and champagne flutes. "Ah, Mr. Uzumaki." Slughorn boomed upon Naruto's entrance, materializing with surprising agility for his substantial frame. "Our guest of honor arrives. Come, come, the minister has been most eager to continue your discussions." The professor's effusive greeting drew attention from throughout the room, making discreet entrance impossible. Naruto recognized calculated staging, Slughorn demonstrating his social capital through public association with Slytherin's heir. Minister Leech occupied a central seating arrangement, flanked by severe-looking wizards whose rigid posture and watchful eyes screamed security detail in any dimension. Beside them sat an austere man wearing robes embroidered with shifting celestial patterns, Director Croker of the Department of Mysteries, according to Narcissa's information. "Mr. Uzumaki," Leech greeted with politician's practiced warmth. "Delighted you could join us." Professor Slughorn's gatherings provide such comfortable settings for informal discussion. Translation: plausible deniability for conversations that shouldn't happen through official channels. Naruto recognized the approach from diplomatic missions in feudal courts. "Director Croker has expressed particular interest in your interdimensional experiences," Leech continued, gesturing toward the austere wizard. Croker's penetrating gaze reminded Naruto uncomfortably of Danzo, analytical assessment measuring potential utility rather than human connection. "The Department of Mysteries has recorded 17 anomalous dimensional fluctuations over the past 8 months, he stated without preamble. "Your arrival coincided with the most significant event in our monitoring history." The directness provided welcome contrast to Leech's political hedging. "Salazar Slytherin's records suggest dimensional barriers thin cyclically approximately every 1,000 years, Naruto replied, matching Croker's professional tone. His research anticipated this period would feature increased permeability between worlds. Interest sharpened in Croker's expression. "You've reviewed Slytherin's original research? Our historical division possesses only fragmentary references to his dimensional theories." The chamber contained extensive documentation, Naruto confirmed. "Professor Binns and I have been translating scrolls written in Parseltongue and ancient Uzumaki script." Before Croker could pursue this tantalizing academic thread, Slughorn steered another guest into their circle, a tall, aristocratic man with platinum blonde hair similar to Narcissa's. Abraxas Malfoy, chairman of the Hogwarts Board of Governors, Slughorn introduced with transparent networking glee. "Abraxas, Mr. Uzumaki is the dimensional traveler I mentioned," confirmed Slytherin heir and master of wandless magic. Malfoy extended a manicured hand adorned with multiple signet rings. Fascinating credentials. The pureblood community has discussed little else these past weeks. The handshake conveyed perfect pressure, neither domineering nor submissive, establishing social equality. A practiced politician's greeting. "My son Lucius speaks highly of your demonstration in Professor Marathot's defense class," Malfoy continued. "Combining Eastern combat techniques with traditional spellwork offers intriguing tactical advantages." The reference to Naruto's guest lecture, where he demonstrated shinobi taijutsu enhanced by magical shields, carried undertones beyond academic appreciation. Malfoy assessed military application rather than theoretical interest. "Effective combat requires integrating available techniques regardless of origin," Naruto replied neutrally. "Rigid adherence to tradition creates exploitable weaknesses." Malfoy's eyebrow lifted slightly. A progressive perspective from Slytherin's heir. How unexpected. The conversation's subtextual layers multiplied as additional guests joined their circle, department heads, prominent researchers, and society figures whose political alignment spanned Wizarding Britain's ideological spectrum. Each probed for Naruto's position on carefully selected topics: magical integration policies, creature rights legislation, international magical cooperation, educational reform. Navigating the social minefield required diplomatic skills Naruto had developed during post-war negotiations, listening thoroughly, responding thoughtfully without committing to factions, redirecting contentious subjects toward common ground. "You handle politics with unexpected dexterity for one so young," observed an elderly witch who had introduced herself as Griselda Marchbanks of the Wizarding Examinations Authority. Your counterpart in our world lacks such restraint. The oblique reference to Voldemort, apparently the only other known Parselmouth, reflected growing comparisons between the Dark Lord and Slytherin's returned heir. Public opinion remained divided on whether Naruto represented alternative or parallel to Voldemort's pureblood agenda. Different experiences shape different approaches, Naruto replied diplomatically. My world's conflicts taught valuable lessons about divisive ideology. Before Marchbanks could respond, a commotion at the entrance drew attention. Bellatrix Black arrived in characteristic style, fashionably late, dramatically attired in deep crimson robes that violated conservative pure-blood aesthetics without technically breaching decorum. Her wild dark curls remained partially untamed despite obvious styling attempts, creating an impression of barely contained intensity. Slughorn hurried to welcome his Slytherin prefect, though Naruto noticed the professor's enthusiasm contained more calculation than his greeting for other students. Bellatrix represented complex social capital, Black family connection counterbalanced by her reputation for unpredictable brilliance. She navigated directly toward Naruto's conversation circle, ignoring several attempts to intercept her. Professor Binns translated another section of Salazar's dimensional notes, she announced without bothering with social pleasantries. The cyclic thinning correlates with astronomical alignments occurring next month. We should accelerate the practical experimentation schedule. Several nearby conversations paused at this declaration, particularly among Croker's Department of Mysteries colleagues. Bellatrix had deliberately dropped sensitive research information in public, a calculated move to force institutional response rather than bureaucratic delay. Perhaps we might discuss research schedules in more appropriate settings, Miss Black, Croker suggested with brittle politeness. Bellatrix's smile contained predatory satisfaction. Of course, Director. I merely thought interdimensional stability warranted immediate attention. Particularly given recent magical anomalies reported near Little Hangleton. The location reference produced visible tension among ministry officials, clearly significant, though Naruto lacked context to understand why. Croker's expression hardened fractionally before political composure reasserted itself. The department monitors all magical anomalies with appropriate protocols, he stated neutrally. Naturally, Bellatrix agreed with exaggerated deference. Just as the ministry monitored Grindelwald's activities so effectively before continental evacuation became necessary. The historical reference landed like a gauntlet thrown. Minister Leach's security detail shifted uncomfortably while conversations throughout the room quieted, attention gravitating toward the brewing confrontation. Slughorn intervened with practiced social damage control. More refreshments. And I believe our musical entertainment is prepared to begin. Miss Greengrass plays the enchanted harp magnificently. The forced subject change succeeded partially, allowing conversation clusters to reform while creating space between Bellatrix and increasingly uncomfortable ministry officials. She seized the opportunity to maneuver closer to Naruto, satisfaction evident in her expression. The Department of Mysteries has been stalling access to their dimensional research, she murmured under the cover of polite applause for the harpist. They've recorded significantly more anomalies than they're admitting publicly. And Little Hangleton? Naruto questioned quietly. Riddle family estate. Significant dark magical activity detected recently, though the ministry pretends otherwise. Her dark eyes gleamed with intelligence and frustration. They're so concerned with maintaining illusions of control they ignore genuine threats. The critique sounded remarkably like Sasuke's assessment of Konoha leadership before Pain's attack, accurate observations undermined by absolutist conclusions. Bellatrix possessed brilliant analytical skills without tempering contextual awareness. Sometimes institutions move cautiously to prevent panic, Naruto suggested. Though transparency typically serves better long-term. Bellatrix snorted inelegantly. Diplomatic as ever. You know they're interfering with Slytherin's research for political reasons. Before Naruto could respond, Abraxas Malfoy rejoined their conversation, champagne flute held with aristocratic precision. Miss Black, your academic dedication remains impressive. The Hogwarts board discusses your NEWT predictions regularly, highest anticipated scores since Dumbledore himself, I believe. The compliment carried multifaceted purpose, acknowledgement of Bellatrix's intellect while redirecting from politically sensitive topics, simultaneously establishing Malfoy's institutional authority and social connection to both conversational partners. Theoretical achievement means little without practical application, Mr. Malfoy, Bellatrix replied, her tone shifting to formal pure-blood cadence required for interacting with family allies. Which reminds me, has the board reached decision regarding Professor Mundrake's petition to include practical defensive combat in the curriculum? Malfoy's expression suggested professional admiration for her conversational parry. Still under consideration. Traditional educational perspectives remain hesitant regarding combat preparation for students. Despite increasing disappearances in 3 counties, Bellatrix pressed, maintaining perfect aristocratic delivery while injecting political challenge. Curious prioritization. The board considers all relevant factors, Miss Black, Malfoy responded smoothly. Including parental concerns about premature exposure to combat magic. The verbal fencing continued, sophisticated and subtle, until interrupted by another arrival. Albus Dumbledore entered Slughorn's quarters without fanfare yet commanded immediate attention through sheer presence, power contained within eccentricity rather than flaunted through ostentation. Albus! Slughorn exclaimed with genuine pleasure. I wasn't certain you could attend. Academic responsibilities complete earlier than anticipated, Dumbledore replied genially, his gaze sweeping the gathered dignitaries before settling on Naruto. Though I confess ulterior motive. Mr. Uzumaki and I have scheduled consultation regarding Hogwarts historical archives that cannot be delayed, given certain astronomical considerations. The reference to astronomical considerations echoed Bellatrix's earlier comment about cyclic alignments, Dumbledore providing legitimate excuse for Naruto's early departure while acknowledging the research. Importance. Minister Leech looked disappointed but politically constrained from objecting to Hogwarts business. Perhaps we might continue our discussion tomorrow, Mr. Uzumaki. The ministry would value your insights regarding interdimensional security protocols. Of course, Minister, Naruto agreed, recognizing Dumbledore's intervention as both rescue and directive. Political niceties completed, they departed Slughorn's gathering with Bellatrix following uninvited but unchallenged, her academic involvement in translation research providing plausible justification. I presume Miss Black informed you about the astronomical alignment calculations? Dumbledore inquired once they had reached the corridor. Bellatrix lifted her chin defiantly. Someone needed to accelerate the timeline. The ministry deliberately obstructs research that doesn't serve their narrative. A perspective containing partial truth yet lacking administrative context, Dumbledore replied mildly. Though your translation work with Professor Binns has indeed proven valuable. They proceeded toward the headmaster's office, Dumbledore explaining en route that examination of Slytherin's astronomical charts had revealed critical timing information. The alignment occurs in 23 days, he elaborated. According to Salazar's calculations, dimensional permeability reaches maximum potential during that window, which coincides with concerning reports from various monitoring systems. The gargoyle guarding his office sprang aside without password, recognizing the headmaster's magical signature. As they ascended the spiral staircase, Naruto noted unusual activity within, multiple voices engaged in serious discussion rather than the typical administrative quiet. The office had transformed into improvised war room. Star charts and dimensional diagrams covered available wall space, while a complex magical model occupied the central area where Dumbledore's desk normally stood. Around this three-dimensional representation of British magical ley lines gathered an unlikely assembly, Professor McGonagall, Alastair Moody, a young Auror named Kingsley Shacklebolt and, most surprisingly, a vivid red-headed student in Gryffindor robes. Sorry for the theatrical extraction, Dumbledore apologized, gesturing them toward vacant chairs. Horace's gatherings, while valuable for certain communications, limit critical discussions. Especially with Malfoy present, Moody growled. Man's connections grow increasingly questionable. Bellatrix bristled visibly. The Malfoys represent traditional wizarding values, or moody. Their political perspective deserves respect regardless of your personal alignment. Their financial contributions to certain organizations deserve investigation, Moody countered bluntly. Dumbledore raised one hand, preventing further escalation. Political perspectives remain secondary to immediate concerns. Miss Evans has identified critical pattern correlation that requires immediate attention. The red-headed Gryffindor straightened at her introduction. The dimensional fluctuations follow mathematical progression corresponding to dark matter theory from Muggle quantum physics, she explained, intelligence evident in her precise delivery. When integrated with Professor Slytherin's astronomical calculations, they predict not gradual permeability increase but rapid deterioration culminating during the equinox. Naruto studied the young woman with newfound interest. Unlike Bellatrix's aristocratic intensity or Narcissa's political calculation, this student projected intellectual confidence grounded in research rather than status. Lily Evans, 7th-year Gryffindor and arithmancy specialist, Dumbledore introduced formally. Miss Evans approached Professor Vector with theoretical correlation that proved instrumental to understanding Salazar's more obscure calculations. Muggle-born, Bellatrix identified immediately, her tone communicating aristocratic surprise at the outsider's inclusion in sensitive research. With highest theoretical marks in our year, Lily countered without hesitation, green eyes flashing challenge. Blood status doesn't determine mathematical aptitude, Black. Rather than expected pure blood disdain, Bellatrix responded with evaluative reassessment. Apparently not. Your integration of quantum theory with magical probability matrices shows genuine innovation. The unexpected professional acknowledgement seemed to surprise Lily more than confrontation would have. Thank you, she replied cautiously before refocusing on research. The critical issue remains correlation between dimensional weakness points and recent magical disturbances. She gestured toward glowing red indicators on the ley line map. 7 locations show both dimensional thinning and dark magical energy concentration. Most concerning, she pointed to a particularly bright cluster. Little Hangleton shows the most advanced deterioration alongside strongest dark magical signature. Tom's family estate, Dumbledore murmured. Not coincidental, I fear. Who's Tom? Naruto questioned, sensing critical context. Tom Riddle, McGonagall clarified. The wizard now calling himself Lord Voldemort. Bellatrix flinched slightly at the name, common reaction among Wizarding Britain's population, Naruto had observed. Current intelligence suggests Riddle conducts rituals specifically targeting dimensional barriers, Moody contributed, his magical eye rotating independently from his normal one. Purpose unknown, but timing correlates with Slytherin's predicted dimensional convergence. Purpose seems rather obvious, Lily interjected with pragmatic bluntness. If dimensional barriers weaken sufficiently, whatever separates our world from others becomes accessible. Given his documented interest in power acquisition, logical conclusion suggests he seeks interdimensional capabilities. The assessment aligned with information Naruto had pieced together from Slytherin's archives and contemporary reports. Voldemort, a distant Slytherin descendant according to genealogical records, pursued corrupted versions of Salazar's research without understanding critical balancing factors. The chamber archives contain protective measures Salazar developed against exactly this scenario, Naruto explained. He anticipated someone might attempt to force dimensional breaches rather than work with natural convergence points. Which requires Parseltongue to access, Bellatrix added. Convenient restriction limiting research to Slytherin descendants. Or deliberate safeguard preventing misapplication, Lily countered. Their academic sparring reflected broader ideological tension, pure-blood perspective versus progressive interpretation, yet both demonstrated analytical brilliance approaching challenges from different angles. Dumbledore refocused the discussion. Time constraints necessitate collaborative approach regardless of philosophical differences. Miss Evans' mathematical models, Miss Black's translation expertise, and Mr. Uzumaki's practical interdimensional experience provide complementary assets. The proposed collaboration produced visible discomfort in both young women, though for different reasons. Bellatrix maintained aristocratic distance from Muggleborns through family tradition. Lily clearly harbored justified wariness toward pureblood supremacist ideology Bellatrix's family represented. "I'll work with anyone committed to preventing dimensional catastrophe," Lily stated pragmatically. Research parameters rather than social affiliation determine productive collaboration. Acceptable arrangement, Bellatrix agreed with minimal enthusiasm. Theoretical models require practical application expertise regardless of source. Their grudging cooperation represented microcosm of Wizarding Britain's broader challenges, capable individuals divided by ideological boundaries that impeded effective response to genuine threats. "Excellent," Dumbledore approved. "Professor McGonagall will provide necessary schedule adjustments to accommodate research requirements. Alastor will coordinate security. Arrangements with Kingsley, particularly for field measurements at affected locations." The planning session continued late into evening, establishing research protocols and security parameters for investigating dimensional anomalies. Throughout discussions, Naruto observed interesting dynamics between Lily and Bellatrix, initial antagonism gradually yielding to professional respect despite maintained ideological differences. Both possessed exceptional intelligence applied through different cultural frameworks, creating productive friction rather than merely destructive conflict. As the meeting concluded near midnight, Naruto realized his planned meeting with Narcissa had been entirely overlooked amid more pressing concerns. The oversight bothered him more than expected, diplomatic obligations certainly, but something beyond mere politics. Narcissa's careful self-containment presented intriguing counterpoint to her sister's volcanic expressiveness, both fascinating in distinctly different ways. "You missed your appointment with Sissy," Bellatrix noted as they descended from Dumbledore's office, demonstrating characteristic perceptiveness. "She'll maintain perfect composure while plotting appropriate retribution." "The dimensional research took precedence," Naruto replied, though genuine regret colored his tone. Bellatrix's knowing smile suggested she detected more than political concern. "My sister appreciates directness despite appearances otherwise. Her Slytherin common room study concludes at 11 most evenings." The information represented uncharacteristic assistance from Bellatrix, who typically maintained competitive rather than cooperative stance regarding her sister's social connections. Perhaps the evening's research collaboration had influenced her interactive approach. "I should apologize for missing our meeting," Naruto acknowledged. "Yes, you should," Bellatrix agreed with surprising earnestness. "Sissy receives fewer academic acknowledgements despite comparable intelligence. Her strategic rather than academic brilliance often goes unrecognized." The insight revealed genuine sisterly affection beneath aristocratic competitiveness, family bonds transcending political positioning. "I'll speak with her tonight," Naruto promised. Bellatrix nodded approval before changing subjects abruptly. "Evan's mathematical approach has merit despite her background limitations. Integrating Muggle quantum concepts with magical probability creates innovative modeling opportunities." The academic acknowledgement represented significant perspective shift, evaluating ideas based on merit rather than source. Small progress perhaps, but noteworthy from someone raised within strict pure-blood hierarchy. They parted ways at the corridor intersection leading toward Slytherin dormitories, Bellatrix proceeding directly while providing specific directions to the common room entrance. The stone wall responded to Parseltongue command, "Noble House," without requiring standard Slytherin password, acknowledging Naruto's heritage status. The common room presented Gothic elegance, emerald-tinged light filtering through lake-facing windows, leather furnishings arranged in conversational groupings, and subtle serpentine motifs incorporated throughout architectural details. Despite late hour, several students remained engaged in quiet study or subdued conversation, their curious glances tracking Naruto's entrance while maintaining aristocratic pretense of disinterest. Narcissa occupied a secluded alcove library as predicted, surrounded by ancient tomes and parchment scrolls. Her platinum hair gleamed in wandlight as she made precise notations with an elegant quill, posture perfect despite hours of study. Unlike her sister's dramatic intensity, Narcissa projected controlled refinement, power contained rather than flamboyantly displayed. "Your sister mentioned I might find you here," Naruto offered by way of greeting. Narcissa looked up with expertly modulated surprise, neither excessive nor inadequate, precisely appropriate for unexpected yet not unwelcome interruption. "Mr. Uzumaki. Research meetings concluded successfully?" The neutral inquiry contained neither accusation nor disappointment regarding missed appointment, perfect pure-blood composure masking genuine reaction. Unlike Bellatrix, whose emotions manifested volcanically, Narcissa's self-control transformed emotional expression into subtle art form. Dimensional stability concerns took precedence, Naruto explained, matching her formal tone while offering indirect apology. "I regret missing our scheduled conversation." Narcissa closed her reference text with deliberate movements. Understandable prioritization given current instability metrics. Bella mentioned accelerated deterioration patterns requiring immediate attention. The response showcased her information network, already aware of research developments despite not attending Dumbledore's meeting. Slytherin intelligence gathering at its finest. "Your sister demonstrated surprising willingness to collaborate with Lily Evans," Naruto observed, testing Narcissa's reaction to unexpected alliance. "Pragmatic necessity often overrides social convention during crisis scenarios," she replied diplomatically before adding with surprising candor, "though Evans' mathematical brilliance warrants recognition regardless of lineage considerations." The assessment revealed independent thinking beyond family orthodoxy, capacity for evaluative judgment not entirely constrained by pure-blood ideology. Like her sister, Narcissa demonstrated intellectual flexibility belying aristocratic stereotype. The dimensional research would benefit from strategic perspective beyond technical specialization, Naruto suggested. Multiple approaches increase success probability. Narcissa's eyebrow arched fractionally, recognizing the subtle invitation beneath surface conversation. "Theoretical physics falls outside my academic focus. Political implications and strategic contingencies better align with my analytical framework." "Precisely why your perspective would prove valuable," Naruto countered. "Technical specialists often overlook broader implications." The exchange represented classic Slytherin communication, substantive discussion wrapped within social positioning, genuine invitation extended through strategic framing rather than direct request. Narcissa recognized the approach immediately, her lips curving into slight smile indicating appreciation for conversational compatibility. "Perhaps I might review current research parameters," she conceded with calculated reluctance masking genuine interest. Tomorrow afternoon following arithmancy would allow sufficient preparation time. Agreement established, conversation shifted toward current political landscape surrounding dimensional anomalies. Narcissa provided insightful analysis of ministry factions, identifying key power brokers, historical allegiances, and potential leverage points with precision that would impress Shikamaru. Minister Leach maintains progressive public persona while privately accommodating traditional power structures, she explained. His dependence on ancient houses for financial support creates exploitable policy contradictions, particularly regarding research classification protocols. "You understand political ecosystems remarkably well," Naruto observed with genuine admiration. "Survival necessity within pure-blood society," Narcissa replied with uncharacteristic directness. "Particularly for daughters expected to advance family interests through strategic marriages rather than direct achievement." The statement revealed glimpse beneath carefully maintained aristocratic facade, frustration regarding gendered expectations within traditional wizarding society. Unlike Bellatrix, who challenged conventions through direct confrontation, Narcissa navigated systemic constraints through masterful internal maneuvering. Their conversation continued well past midnight, ranging from immediate dimensional concerns to broader wizarding political structures. Throughout, Narcissa demonstrated analytical brilliance different from yet comparable to her sister's academic intensity, strategic rather than technical, systemic rather than specialized, equally formidable through different application. When they finally concluded, Narcissa gathered her materials with characteristic precision. Tomorrow's research review should prove intellectually stimulating. Theoretical physics combined with political implications creates fascinating analytical matrix. The formal phrasing contained genuine enthusiasm carefully modulated within socially acceptable parameters, Narcissa's trademark communication style. Naruto recognized significant trust demonstration in allowing even this limited emotional transparency. "I look forward to your strategic perspective," he replied sincerely. Something shifted in Narcissa's expression, brief vulnerability quickly masked by practiced composure. Few recognize value in political analysis compared to technical brilliance. "Your acknowledgement is appreciated." The admission cost her visible effort. Aristocratic training emphasized strength projection rather than genuine connection. That she offered even this limited personal disclosure signified meaningful trust development. Their parting maintained formal propriety despite conversational intimacy established, handshake rather than embrace, proper titles despite hours of intellectual exchange. Yet beneath social performance, connection had formed based on mutual recognition transcending political positioning. As Naruto departed Slytherin territory, he reflected on contrasting dynamics with the Black Sisters. Bellatrix engaged through passionate intensity, challenging, demanding, intellectually voracious. Narcissa connected through strategic precision, observant, calculating, politically perceptive. Different manifestations of exceptional intelligence applied through contrasting temperaments. "You attract complicated females across dimensions," Kurama observed dryly. "These sisters make Sakura seem emotionally uncomplicated." "They're products of their environment," Naruto replied thoughtfully. "Brilliant minds constrained by rigid social expectations." "The blonde reminds me of Mito Uzumaki," Kurama mused, referencing his first Jinchuriki. "Controlled exterior masking formidable determination." "The dark-haired one resembles Kushina's temperament, passionate conviction barely contained." The comparison startled Naruto. His mother's personality had indeed shared Bellatrix's intensity, though directed toward protection rather than ambition. The parallel suggested disturbing possibility that Bellatrix's volcanic nature might channel toward destructive paths without positive direction. Sleep came fitfully that night, dreams filled with dimensional portals, ancient chambers, and twin sisters standing at crossroads between worlds, one extending hand in passionate invitation, the other offering calculated alliance, both representing paths with profound consequences beyond immediate connection. Dawn arrived with unexpected summons, Dumbledore's Phoenix Patronus materializing beside Naruto's bed with urgent message, dimensional breach detected near Godric's Hollow. Assistance required immediately. Naruto dressed rapidly, securing equipment pouches containing shinobi tools alongside newly acquired wizarding implements. The Slytherin locket hummed against his chest, resonating with dimensional disturbance despite considerable distance. The castle corridors stood empty in pre-breakfast stillness as he made his way toward Dumbledore's office, arriving simultaneously with Lily Evans whose sleep-tousled red hair suggested equally abrupt awakening. "You received the summons too?" she questioned, suppressing yawn while straightening her hastily donned robes. "Must be significant breach to justify student involvement." Dimensional expertise prioritized over standard protocols, Naruto agreed as the gargoyle admitted them without password, emergency authorization activated. Dumbledore's office contained small assembly, the headmaster himself, McGonagall, Moody, and surprisingly both Black Sisters. Bellatrix's wild curls remained untamed by hasty preparation, while Narcissa maintained perfect composure despite evident rapid deployment. Monitoring systems detected significant dimensional fracture near Godric's Hollow at 4:17 this morning, Dumbledore explained without preamble, indicating pulsing red disruption on the magical map. Unlike previous anomalies, this breach appears deliberately engineered rather than natural deterioration. Residual magical signatures? Bellatrix questioned immediately, fully engaged despite early hour. Consistent with rituals documented in Salazar's restricted texts, McGonagall confirmed grimly. Those requiring sacrificial components. The implication silenced the room momentarily. Human sacrifice represented darkest magical territory, power purchased through unconscionable means. Godric's Hollow holds historical significance beyond residential status, Narcissa observed, analytical mind identifying strategic patterns. Magical convergence point dating to Founder's era. Gryffindor's birthplace. And location of interdimensional marker stone according to Slytherin's maps, Lily added, earning surprised glance from Bellatrix at the academic reference. Dumbledore nodded grave confirmation. Precisely why immediate investigation is necessary before Ministry containment teams implement standard protocols that might destroy critical evidence. You're circumventing official channels, Narcissa identified immediately, political implications clear. Significant risk given current administrative climate. Necessary calculation, Dumbledore acknowledged without elaboration, unusual frankness revealing situation severity. Transportation arrangements proved equally unorthodox, port key created without Ministry authorization, timed for immediate departure. Standard protocols abandoned in favor of rapid response team composed of decidedly non-standard personnel. Maintain constant vigilance, Moody growled as they prepared for departure. Site likely booby-trapped beyond obvious dangers. Dark practitioners favor secondary security measures targeting first responders. The port key, an ordinary-looking teakettle, activated with characteristic navel hooking sensation, depositing the group at Godric's hollow outskirts where pre-dawn light barely illuminated quaint village surrounded by misty countryside. Despite picturesque setting, wrongness permeated the atmosphere, magical distortion palpable even without specialized detection. The dimensional tear affects local physics, Lily observed, casting diagnostic charm that produced concerning readings. Molecular stability decreasing proportional to proximity. Bellatrix performed complementary dark detection spell, her wand movements precise despite usually favoring theatrical flourish. Sacrificial residue confirmed. Recent. Within 6 hours. Narcissa meanwhile evaluated tactical positioning with characteristic efficiency. Site selection suggests strategic rather than merely convenient location. Magical convergence point maximizes ritual effectiveness while historical significance adds symbolic power. Their combined expertise created comprehensive assessment from different analytical frameworks, technical, magical, and strategic perspectives integrating into unified situation analysis. Despite ideological differences, their intellectual compatibility proved impressive. Moody led their advance toward disturbance epicenter, a seemingly ordinary hillock beyond village boundaries, unremarkable except for ancient standing stones half buried by centuries of accumulated soil. As they approached, reality itself seemed to waver, light bending unnaturally around stone circle, vegetation transitioning between healthy and withered states without apparent pattern. Dimensional boundary compromised, Naruto confirmed, sensing disruption patterns similar to his accidental transportation experience. Deliberate breach rather than natural thinning. The Slytherin locket pulsed against his chest with increasing urgency, responding to proximity like compass seeking magnetic north. Following its guidance, Naruto approached central standing stone where disturbing evidence confirmed Bellatrix's assessment, sacrificial altar established through perversion of ancient site's original purpose. At least 3 victims, Moody determined grimly, his magical eye analyzing blood patterns invisible to normal perception. Ritual designed to fracture reality using death energy as catalyst. Dumbledore examined runic inscriptions carved into standing stones, recent additions defacing ancient markers. Corrupted version of Salazar's dimensional formula. Impressive theoretical understanding coupled with fundamental misapplication. Someone studied Slytherin's research yet missed critical stabilization components, Bellatrix concluded, professional assessment overriding emotional response to gruesome scene. Attempting forced breach without compensatory anchoring. Creating dimensional instability rather than controlled passage, Lily added, completing technical analysis. Essentially magical battering ram rather than properly constructed doorway. Their collaboration demonstrated professional focus transcending personal differences, unified by intellectual challenge despite philosophical disagreements. Even Narcissa contributed strategic assessment despite lacking technical specialization. Target-specific rather than general breach, she observed, examining ritual configuration. These alignment markers suggest predetermined destination rather than random dimensional fracturing. The observation proved critical, ritual designed to access specific alternate reality rather than simply damaging dimensional barriers. Implication suggested concerning possibility that Voldemort sought particular world for specific purpose rather than general interdimensional capabilities. Could they be targeting your world specifically? Lily asked Naruto directly. The question carried disturbing plausibility. Possibly. Shinobi dimensional techniques might present attractive power source for someone seeking unconventional magical expansion. The bijou, Bellatrix identified immediately, demonstrating characteristic research thoroughness. 9 chakra entities of extraordinary power described in Slytherin's Eastern Scrolls. Her academic reference to tailed beast startled Naruto. He hadn't realized Slytherin's records contained such specific information about his world's power structures. Accurate assessment, he acknowledged cautiously. Though extracting bijou would require specialized knowledge beyond mere dimensional access. Knowledge potentially documented in Salazar's restricted archives, Dumbledore noted with growing concern. If Tom accessed certain historical records before pursuing this approach. The implication hung ominously. Voldemort with access to tailed beast power would represent unprecedented threat to both worlds, dimensional breach merely prerequisite to more dangerous ambition. Investigative assessment continued with growing urgency. Lily performed complex arithmetic calculations measuring breach parameters while Bellatrix analyzed residual magical signatures for ritual components. Moody secured perimeter against potential return visits by perpetrators, while McGonagall established anti-Muggle protective boundaries preventing accidental civilian exposure. Narcissa, demonstrating unexpected practical contribution beyond strategic analysis, identified curious anomaly within ritual configuration. This runic cluster serves no obvious technical function within dimensional formula, she observed, indicating seemingly decorative elements carved alongside primary spell components. Aesthetic rather than functional characteristics suggest secondary purpose. Dumbledore examined indicated markings with growing alarm. Not decorative but proprietary, magical signature establishing ownership claim. Tom always marks significant achievements with personal identifiers. The observation confirmed Voldemort's direct involvement rather than follower initiative. Operation importance warranted Dark Lord's personal participation rather than delegation. As investigation proceeded, Naruto explored breach epicenter where dimensional barriers had grown dangerously thin. The Slytherin locket's vibration intensified to almost painful levels as he approached central standing stone, suggesting resonance with dimensional disruption. The megalith serves as focus point, Kurama observed. Similar to summoning anchors in our world. Naruto extended perceptual awareness into disrupted space, sensing chaotic energy patterns where reality itself unraveled. Unlike controlled portals established through proper technique, this breach represented jagged wound in dimensional fabric, damage that would expand without intervention. Following instinct developed through years of Fuinjutsu practice, Naruto channeled chakra through the Slytherin locket while forming stabilization seal with his free hand. The combination produced unexpected effect, emerald energy flowing from locket into dimensional tear, temporarily reinforcing frayed barriers between worlds. It's responding to Slytherin bloodline connection, Bellatrix observed, scientific curiosity overriding caution as she moved closer to observe the phenomenon. Salazar clearly incorporated genetic recognition components into his dimensional research. Inheritance locked. Stabilization mechanism, Lily theorized, momentarily forgetting ideological differences in face of fascinating magical phenomenon. Brilliant safeguard against unauthorized tampering. Their academic appreciation proved short-lived as stabilization effect suddenly reversed, dimensional tear pulsing outward with explosive force that would have thrown conventional wizards backward. Naruto maintained position through chakra-anchored footing while Bellatrix demonstrated impressive magical resistance, quickly establishing shield charm that protected herself and nearby Lily from dimensional backwash. Something's coming through. Moody shouted, wand trained on breach epicenter where space itself folded inward before rupturing completely. Reality tore open like paper screen, revealing swirling vortex reminiscent of Kamui technique. From this dimensional aperture emerged unexpected figure, white-haired man wearing gravity-defying mask covering lower face, standard Jonin attire damaged from apparent recent combat. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto exclaimed, recognizing his former teacher despite dimensional improbability. The Konoha Jonin materialized fully, immediately assuming defensive position before recognizing Naruto among strangers. Naruto. What the hell kind of trouble have you gotten yourself into this time? Before proper explanation could begin, dimensional portal contracted violently, natural resistance reasserting against forced breach. Kakashi leapt clear as reality sealed itself, interdimensional window closing with thunderous implosion that sent magical shockwaves across surrounding countryside. Silence followed momentary chaos, broken eventually by Bellatrix's characteristic directness. Well. Interdimensional visitor confirmation certainly simplifies experimental verification requirements. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed at the unfamiliar language, hand moving toward weapon pouch before Naruto intervened with calming gesture. They're allies, sensei. Though we have significant mutual explanation requirements. Rapid assessment established concerning picture. Kakashi reported tracking dimensional disturbance from Konoha side, unauthorized experimentation with forbidden spacetime techniques creating ripple effects detected by Yamanaka Sensory Division. His investigation team had encountered hostile forces at disturbance epicenter, unknown operatives utilizing unfamiliar energy manipulation resembling neither standard chakra nor known Kekkei Genkai. They specifically targeted Jinchuriki research archives, Kakashi explained once language barriers were addressed through translation charm. Bypassed conventional security through dimensional access point rather than physical infiltration. The information confirmed worst suspicions. Voldemort's dimensional breach represented intelligence gathering operation rather than invasion attempt. Strategic information acquisition preceding larger operation. They're studying extraction methods, Naruto concluded grimly, implications clear. Bijou acquisition rather than territorial expansion. Kakashi nodded agreement. Targeting specific archival material regarding seal mechanics entailed beast transfer protocols. Fortunately encountered resistance from archive guardians before accessing restricted documentation. The news provided minor relief amid concerning development, operation partially thwarted though dimensional breach itself represented significant achievement requiring countering. Introductions and situation briefing proceeded with professional efficiency, Kakashi demonstrating characteristic adaptability despite extraordinary circumstances. His analytical assessment of magical dimensional mechanics impressed even Lily, while his strategic evaluation earned Narcissa's measured approval. Coordinated multidimensional operation suggests organizational capability beyond individual initiative, the Jonin observed. Resource commitment indicates high-priority objective rather than experimental exploration. Voldemort builds interdimensional capability while Ministry remains willfully ignorant, Bellatrix concluded bitterly. Political convenience prioritized over security reality. Then alternative response structure becomes necessary, Dumbledore stated with uncharacteristic directness. Outside official channels yet with sufficient operational capability. The statement carried significant implications, vigilante organization established in response to institutional failure, precisely what conservative elements within Ministry feared from Dumbledore's independent power base. You're forming independent resistance, Narcissa identified immediately, political implications clear. Extraordinary risk given current administration's paranoia regarding parallel power structures. Necessary response to extraordinary threat, Dumbledore replied simply. Sometimes historical moments require choosing between what is right and what is easy. The philosophical statement resonated with Naruto's own experiences. Konoha's institutional failures before Pain's attack had similarly necessitated independent action outside formal authority structures. Sometimes systems designed for stability proved inadequate against evolutionary threats requiring adaptive response. Discussion continued while securing dimensional breach site, Moody establishing sophisticated containment barriers while others developed monitoring systems to detect subsequent activity. Throughout operations, Naruto observed interesting dynamics between team members, Bellatrix and Lily setting aside ideological differences when engaged in technical challenges, Narcissa providing strategic framework integrating various specialized perspectives, Kakashi adapting seamlessly to unfamiliar operational environment through professional flexibility. By mid-morning, immediate crisis response had transitioned to strategic planning. Dumbledore arranged secure transportation back to Hogwarts where expanded response team could develop comprehensive countermeasures against Voldemort's interdimensional initiative. The chamber would provide optimal security for sensitive discussions, Narcissa suggested with practical efficiency. Beyond ministry monitoring capabilities while offering historical resources relevant to current situation. The recommendation demonstrated her strategic value, identifying operational security requirements while leveraging available resources. Dumbledore agreed readily, recognizing practical advantage despite Chamber's controversial associations. Their return to Hogwarts proceeded through unconventional channels, avoiding ministry monitoring systems that had undoubtedly detected dimensional disturbance despite containing public response. Kakashi's presence required particular discretion, interdimensional visitor representing diplomatic complexity beyond existing administrative frameworks. The Chamber of Secrets provided perfect operational headquarters, accessible only through Parseltongue, containing extensive historical archives relevant to dimensional research, and offering space for expanded team operations. Thessalia the Basilisk demonstrated unexpected utility beyond guardian function, her millennial perspective providing historical context regarding previous dimensional thinning cycles. The last convergence brought the founders themselves together, she explained in Parseltongue which Naruto translated for others. Dimensional instability threatened multiple worlds, requiring coordinated response across realities. This historical context transformed their understanding of Hogwarts' creation, school established not merely for educational purposes but as interdimensional monitoring station designed to prepare for cyclical convergence events. Founders had anticipated potential threats arising during dimensional thinning periods, creating infrastructure specifically designed for coordinated response. Slytherin's dimensional research represented continuation rather than innovation, Lily concluded, examining historical documents with growing excitement. Building upon existing interdimensional framework rather than establishing entirely new theoretical approach. Which explains certain architectural anomalies within Hogwarts' original construction, Bellatrix added, momentarily setting aside aristocratic reserve in face of academic discovery. Specialized chambers incorporated into foundation designs serve dimensional monitoring functions rather than merely aesthetic purposes. Their collaborative analysis revealed Hogwarts itself as sophisticated magical instrument designed to detect and respond to dimensional anomalies, original purpose obscured by centuries of administrative repurposing focused on educational rather than defensive function. As research progressed, operational team expanded cautiously. Moody recruited select Aurors outside official channels, Kingsley Shacklebolt, Frank Longbottom, and promising trainee named Alice Fortescue. Dumbledore incorporated trusted faculty members including Flitwick whose charm expertise proved valuable for containment protocols. Even Professor Slughorn contributed, his extensive social network providing intelligence regarding Death Eater movements without revealing operational details. Kakashi meanwhile offered shinobi perspective on interdimensional security, collaborating with Naruto to develop hybrid defensive techniques integrating chakra and magical approaches. Their training sessions attracted academic interest, Bellatrix observing with undisguised fascination while Lily documented theoretical principles for practical application. The integration potential between your energy manipulation and our magical theory creates extraordinary possibilities, Lily observed during particularly impressive demonstration combining Kakashi's lightning techniques with magical amplification. Completely revolutionary paradigm beyond traditional limitations. Even Narcissa, typically focused on political rather than technical aspects, recognized strategic implications. Cross-dimensional capability integration provides asymmetric advantage against opponents restricted to single-system methodologies. Their observations highlighted key advantage against Voldemort's operations, while Dark Lord sought interdimensional power, Naruto's team already implemented integrated approach combining both world strengths. This operational head start provided critical opportunity to develop countermeasures before Voldemort achieved full interdimensional capability. Research proceeded along multiple tracks simultaneously. Lily and Bellatrix focused on dimensional mechanics, developing theoretical models predicting breach patterns while creating detection systems for unauthorized crossings. Their unlikely partnership demonstrated intellectual compatibility transcending social divisions, brilliant minds finding common ground through shared challenges despite maintained philosophical differences. Narcissa meanwhile coordinated intelligence gathering through extensive pure-blood social network, extracting valuable information from seemingly innocent conversations at society functions while maintaining plausible deniability. Her political acumen identified key Death Eater supporters within ministry hierarchy, enabling operational planning that circumvented compromised official channels. Kakashi provided invaluable perspective regarding shinobi world security implications, particularly concerning bijou extraction threats. His tactical expertise complemented Moody's magical security approach, creating multi-layered defensive strategy incorporating both worlds' methodologies. Throughout intensive preparations, Naruto found himself center of expanding operational network, dimensional bridge connecting disparate specialists into cohesive response team. His unique position as Slytherin heir with shinobi training enabled communication across traditional boundaries, creating unprecedented cooperation between normally separated groups. The chamber itself transformed from historical archive to operational headquarters, ancient workspace repurposed for contemporary crisis response. Slytherin's research materials provided theoretical foundation while modern magical innovation supplied practical implementation. Even Thessalia contributed beyond security function, her millennial perspective offering historical context regarding previous dimensional convergence events. During rare quiet moment between planning sessions, Naruto found Bellatrix studying Slytherin's personal journals with characteristic intensity. Unlike her usual dramatic presence, she projected uncharacteristic vulnerability, brilliant mind confronting philosophical questions beyond technical challenges. Salazar wasn't what history portrays, she observed without looking up from ancient text. His blood purism represented practical concern regarding magical stability rather than mere prejudice. His research suggests Muggle-born integration required carefully managed transition to prevent magical dilution effects. The observation revealed ongoing ideological reconsideration, deeply held beliefs confronting historical evidence contradicting simplified narratives. Naruto recognized psychological threshold moment, worldview evolution occurring through intellectual integrity rather than external pressure. History often simplifies complex motivations, he offered carefully. Personalities reduced to symbolic representations serving contemporary political narratives. Bellatrix glanced up, dark eyes reflecting internal conflict. My family traditions emphasized blood purity as absolute value rather than contextual consideration. Working with Evans demonstrates intelligence transcends hereditary boundaries, uncomfortable reality challenging fundamental assumptions. The admission represented extraordinary vulnerability from someone raised within rigid ideological framework, intellectual honesty overcoming entrenched cultural programming. Not complete perspective transformation, but critical first step toward independent evaluation rather than inherited belief. Reconsidering foundational perspectives requires significant courage, Naruto acknowledged, respecting psychological difficulty involved. Especially when identity connects strongly with established worldview. Their conversation continued along philosophical rather than merely technical lines, exploring how evidence-based reconsideration differs from betrayal, how intellectual integrity sometimes necessitates painful reassessment of inherited truths. Throughout exchange, Bellatrix demonstrated remarkable capacity for conceptual flexibility despite lifetime immersion in rigid ideological structure. Similar evolution appeared in Narcissa, though manifested differently through her characteristic subtle approach. During strategy session with Moody and Kingsley, she demonstrated willingness to collaborate with blood traders and Muggleborns when operational requirements demanded, pragmatic adaptation rather than ideological transformation, yet representing significant developmental milestone nonetheless. Survival necessitates tactical flexibility regarding traditional associations, she explained when Bellatrix commented on her uncharacteristic cooperative approach. Strategic objectives temporarily supersede social considerations. The rationalization maintained psychological consistency while enabling behavioral adaptation, classic Slytherin pragmatism allowing necessary evolution without identity disruption. Unlike Bellatrix's intellectual reassessment approach, Narcissa implemented practical cooperation justified through strategic necessity rather than philosophical reconsideration. Both sisters demonstrated remarkable developmental capacity despite different methodologies, Bellatrix through intellectual honesty confronting contradictory evidence, Narcissa through pragmatic adaptation prioritizing objectives over traditions. Their evolution reflected broader theme emerging throughout crisis response, individuals growing beyond inherited limitations when confronted with challenges transcending traditional frameworks. Breakthrough came unexpectedly during late-night research session 2 weeks into operations. Lily, reviewing arithmetic calculations regarding dimensional convergence patterns, identified critical anomaly within predicted timeline. The convergence accelerates exponentially rather than linearly, she announced, highlighting mathematical projection demonstrating disturbing pattern. Each breach weakens overall dimensional integrity, creating cascading deterioration effect. Bellatrix immediately recognized implications, their academic partnership having evolved into efficient collaborative mechanism despite maintained social distance. Voldemort's forced breaches damage structural integrity beyond specific access points. He's inadvertently destabilizing entire interdimensional framework. Their analysis revealed concerning possibility, Dark Lord's operations potentially triggering catastrophic dimensional collapse rather than merely establishing controlled access between worlds. Strategic implications extended beyond immediate security concerns toward existential threat affecting multiple realities. If these calculations prove accurate, we have less than 8 days before irreversible cascade failure, Lily concluded grimly, mathematical projections displaying accelerating deterioration patterns. After that threshold, dimensional barriers collapse entirely. The timeline adjustment created immediate operational urgency, theoretical concerns transforming into imminent catastrophic threat requiring immediate response rather than methodical preparation. We need Slytherin stabilization matrix, Bellatrix stated, referencing complex magical framework documented in chamber archives. Full implementation rather than temporary containment measures. Narcissa, applying strategic perspective to technical requirements, identified critical resource gap. The stabilization matrix requires specific focal components. According to Slytherin's documentation, 3 artifacts possess necessary resonance characteristics. The Deathly Hallows, Dumbledore confirmed quietly, speaking personal knowledge rather than theoretical speculation. Slytherin's research identified these artifacts as dimensional anchor points capable of stabilizing convergence events when properly aligned. His statement carried unmistakable certainty suggesting direct familiarity beyond academic understanding, personal knowledge rather than theoretical speculation. The subtle shift didn't escape Narcissa's perceptive analysis or Bellatrix's intuitive awareness, both sisters exchanging meaningful glances acknowledging significant revelation. You know where these artifacts are located, Narcissa stated rather than questioned. Characteristic directness cutting through diplomatic ambiguity. Dumbledore nodded slowly, uncharacteristic hesitation revealing personal rather than merely professional involvement. I possess one. Another remains with its hereditary guardian. The third. He paused significantly. The third has recently changed hands through concerning circumstances. Voldemort acquired the Resurrection Stone, Bellatrix concluded immediately, connecting information fragments into coherent assessment. The Little Hangleton anomalies involved recovering Gaunt family heirloom containing the stone. Dumbledore's surprised expression confirmed her deduction, impressive analytical leap based on limited information demonstrating her exceptional intelligence beyond academic knowledge. Correct, Miss Black. The stone passed through Gaunt family lineage for generations, ultimately coming into Tom's possession through his maternal ancestry. Recent magical surges around Little Hangleton correspond with its activation using methods Slytherin specifically warned against. The revelation transformed operational parameters significantly. Stabilization now required recovering artifact from Voldemort himself rather than merely implementing theoretical countermeasures. Strategic complexity increased exponentially, requiring direct confrontation rather than merely defensive positioning. "Where are the other Hallows?" Naruto asked, recognizing critical mission parameters establishment. "The Cloak of Invisibility remains with Potter family. Current generation's Fleamont has maintained traditional guardianship despite significant offers for its purchase." Dumbledore's gaze shifted toward Slytherin locket at Naruto's throat. "The Elder Wand, however, has more complicated provenance." With uncharacteristic directness, Dumbledore withdrew familiar wand from his robes, 15 inches of elder wood bearing distinctive decorative patterns along its length. "One from Gellert Grindelwald during our final confrontation. Its history spans centuries of bloodshed and betrayal, power corrupting successive owners despite warnings embedded within its very construction." The casual revelation, Dumbledore himself possessed legendary unbeatable wand, stunned even normally unflappable Narcissa, while Bellatrix's expression reflected uncharacteristic speechlessness. Lily alone seemed unsurprised, suggesting prior knowledge through separate channels. "Two components accessible, one requiring recovery from hostile possession," Kakashi summarized with shinobi efficiency, focusing on operational parameters rather than historical significance. "Timeline requires immediate implementation rather than extended planning cycle." His pragmatic assessment refocused discussion toward practical requirements rather than theoretical implications. Operational planning proceeded with renewed urgency, Moody developing security protocols for Potter family contact, Flitwick creating specialized containment systems for Hallows transportation, Lily and Bellatrix calculating precise arithmetic coordinates for stabilization ritual implementation. Narcissa meanwhile applied strategic perspective toward mission's political implications. Operation this scale cannot remain completely covert despite security measures. Contingency planning should address inevitable exposure and resulting political fallout. Her consideration demonstrated characteristic foresight, addressing aftermath management alongside immediate operational requirements. Politics wouldn't disappear during crisis, preparing for power structure response represented necessary strategic component beyond technical requirements. Planning continued through night into early morning, operational timeline compressed by mathematical certainty of approaching dimensional collapse. Task allocation proceeded according to specialized capabilities, Moody's team handling security parameters, Kakashi and Naruto developing hybrid containment techniques integrating chakra with magical approaches, Black Sisters coordinating intelligence gathering regarding Voldemort's movements. Lily's mathematical models predicted optimal implementation window coinciding with approaching equinox, dimensional barriers reaching minimum stability point during astronomical alignment. This timing created both opportunity and danger. Ideal conditions for stabilization ritual implementation also represented maximum vulnerability to catastrophic collapse if Voldemort continued forced breach attempts. "We need direct intervention capability rather than merely defensive positioning," Kakashi observed during final planning session. "Preventing additional forced breaches while implementing stabilization protocol requires offensive component beyond containment measures." The assessment highlighted mission's dual requirements, stabilization implementation alongside active opposition to ongoing enemy operations. Split focus necessitated expanded operational team beyond research specialists, incorporating combat-capable members for direct intervention capability. "I've contacted certain individuals with appropriate qualifications," Moody announced gruffly. Operating outside official channels requires personal loyalty rather than institutional affiliation. By afternoon, operational headquarters had expanded to include select combat specialists, Aurors Frank and Alice Longbottom, Curse Breaker Fabian Pruitt, and dueling champion Dorcas Meadows. Their incorporation transformed research initiative into functional strike team capable of both defensive and offensive operations against Death Eater activities. Meanwhile, diplomatic mission to Potter family proceeded through Dumbledore's personal connection, explanation regarding dimensional crisis convincing Fleamont Potter to temporarily surrender family heirloom for greater purpose. The invisibility cloak's arrival completed 2/3 of necessary components for stabilization ritual, leaving only resurrection stone requiring recovery from Voldemort's possession. Intelligence regarding Dark Lord's location proved challenging despite Narcissa's extensive social network. Operational security within Death Eater organization had increased significantly following Dimensional Breach success, suggesting awareness regarding potential countermeasures from opposing forces. Breakthrough came from unexpected source. Regulus Black, Sirius' younger brother and recent Hogwarts graduate, approached Narcissa with critical information following family gathering where concerning conversations had occurred. Bella's absence from social functions hasn't gone unnoticed, he informed his cousin during private meeting arranged through family channels. Certain individuals question her unexpected academic focus given traditional post-graduation expectations. The warning carried multiple significance. Bellatrix's involvement with research team had created suspicion within pure-blood circles traditionally aligned with Voldemort's ideology. Political implications extended beyond personal consequences toward operational security concerns affecting entire mission. More importantly, Regulus provided specific intelligence regarding upcoming operation, major Death Eater gatherings scheduled at Naughty State coinciding precisely with equinox timing. According to fragmentary information gathered through family connections, Voldemort planned significant ritual utilizing recently acquired artifacts including object-matching resurrection stone description. He calls it Ascension Ritual rather than Dimensional Operation, Regulus reported, limited understanding reflecting compartmentalized information within Death Eater hierarchy. Something about transcending traditional magical limitations through ancient power sources. The intelligence, while incomplete, provided critical operational opportunity, confirmed location and timing for both Voldemort and Resurrection Stone, enabling coordinated recovery mission alongside stabilization ritual implementation. Narcissa relayed information through secure channels established for intelligence coordination, triggering immediate planning adjustment incorporating new tactical parameters. Operational timeline compressed further, requiring simultaneous execution across multiple locations rather than sequential implementation as originally designed. Dual strike approach necessary given timing constraints, Moody concluded during emergency planning session. Team 1 implements stabilization ritual using available components while Team 2 executes recovery operation against Naughty State gathering. The approach carried significant risks, divided resources against determined opposition, coordinated timing requirements across separate locations, mission-critical component unavailable until mid-operation recovery. Yet compressed timeline permitted no alternatives given approaching dimensional collapse threshold. Team composition represented critical strategic decision. After intense debate regarding optimal skill distribution, final arrangement balanced specialized capabilities across both operational elements. Team 1, Stabilization Implementation Dumbledore providing Elder Wand component and ritual expertise, Lily conducting arithmetic calculations ensuring precise magical alignment, Flitwick establishing specialized containment fields preventing external interference, Bellatrix translating Parseltongue instructions from Slytherin's original documentation, Narcissa coordinating communication between teams while maintaining political awareness regarding potential ministry intervention. Team 2, Stone Recovery Operation Naruto utilizing Slytherin bloodline connection for detecting Resurrection Stone's unique magical signature, Kakashi providing shinobi tactical expertise against unfamiliar opposition, Moody leading magical security element including Longbottoms, Pruitt, and Meadows, Kingsley maintaining perimeter containment preventing target escape or reinforcement arrival. Final preparations proceeded with grim efficiency, equipment checked and rechecked, communication protocols established ensuring coordination despite physical separation, contingency plans developed addressing potential complications from enemy resistance to unexpected dimensional effects. The Slytherin locket provided unexpected breakthrough during preparations. While examining artifacts' connection to other hallows, Naruto discovered resonance capability allowing limited tracking functionality, the locket responding to proximity with other deathly hallows through subtle vibration patterns detectable by enhanced Jinchuriki senses. This tracking capacity significantly increases recovery probability, Kakashi acknowledged, professional assessment recognizing tactical advantage beyond merely theoretical interest. Directional guidance within operational environment. Improves efficiency compared to standard search patterns. The discovery represented critical advantage, direct location capability rather than area search requirements once inside target zone. Operational planning adjusted accordingly, incorporating Locket's tracking function into tactical approach for Team 2's infiltration methodology. Eve of operation brought unexpected personal interaction amidst technical preparations. Bellatrix sought Naruto privately, uncharacteristic solemnity replacing her typical intensity. Tomorrow's mission parameters involve significant casualty probability, she stated with direct pragmatism rather than emotional deflection. Operational necessity justifies risk acceptance, but certain matters warrant acknowledgement before potential terminal outcomes. The phrasing, technical language masking personal significance, reflected her ongoing evolution. 3 weeks of intensive collaboration had transformed her perspective significantly, intellectual honesty challenging inherited ideological framework while maintaining core personality characteristics. Your presence altered my developmental trajectory substantially, she continued, maintaining formal delivery despite clearly personal content. Exposure to alternative philosophical frameworks and empirical evidence contradicting established beliefs created significant cognitive recalibration requirements. Naruto recognized important psychological moment, someone raised within rigid ideological structure acknowledging fundamental perspective shift resulting from new experiences and relationships. Significant personal growth expressed through characteristic technical language rather than conventional emotional articulation. Working together has been enlightening, he replied, balancing acknowledgement of her growth without patronizing awareness of its difficulty. Your intellectual adaptability despite entrenched cultural programming demonstrates remarkable cognitive flexibility. Her expression softened fractionally, genuine connection penetrating aristocratic composure momentarily. Should operational outcomes prove terminal, I would regret insufficient acknowledgement of your impact on my developmental process. The statement represented extraordinary vulnerability from someone conditioned against emotional transparency, heartfelt sentiment expressed through technical terminology maintaining psychological comfort within unfamiliar emotional territory. Similar conversation occurred later with Narcissa, though manifested through characteristically different approach. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.